Steve, can you hear that?
Yes. You were speechless for a second.
I was. Okay. Hello, Mitch. You there, Mitch?
I am, Kenny. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Steve, we have a little backwash with the,
Oh,
do you,
okay. I'll
hey,
go on.
Mitch, do you have separate speakers and microphone or something? Is that? It sounds like your voice is coming out right after you speak out of some speakers.
Yeah. Trying to see how we can fix that.
Is everybody else muted? When you speak, Mitch, can the rest mute?
Yeah, if there's two devices in the same room, one of them has to be totally muted, microphone and speakers.
We've got one totally muted, which is Brian Chavez. So
I don't know where it's coming from.
Oh, it's coming. It's still coming.
let me try
we're going to
this.
get started while you work on that technical issue. Welcome to our workshop meeting tonight. Again, it's a electronic meeting. Those of you that would like to, in the audience or in our community that would be interested in watching, WashingtonCity.org/meetings. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Mayor, so moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second. Councilman Moody.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to our yearly update from our Dixie Regional Medical Center Administrator, Mitch Cloward. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mayor. Am I still echoing?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Only when you speak.
One moment. Okay. Let me try this again. All right. Our focus continues to be on our patients in providing the very best health care that's available, both from a quality and safety perspective, but also from just a human connection perspective. We provide, big healthcare services here, but it's still really important that with each patient, we make a personal connection with them. So it's nice to have some external validation at times for the work that we do. And recently, U.S. News and World Report ranked us as one of the best regional hospitals in the country. And so there are 55 hospitals in the state of Utah. We were ranked second in the state, and we were recognized for 7 high-performing procedures at our hospital. So that was some nice external validation of the work that we do here locally. Our mission continues to be to help people live the healthiest lives possible. We are supported by the board of directors, board of trustees, and you may recognize some of these individuals that serve on our board. But Brian Chavez is our board chair, and he is here with me this evening. And I wanted to give Brian a moment to just share a few words about the purpose of the board and a few things that have happened at our hospital.
Okay, Mitch, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I appreciate being here to be able to represent the Board of Trustees. Hopefully, you recognize some of these individuals. We try to get a board that is diverse in expertise and experience, and I think we've done that. We have a great board who's very involved, and we have 4 doctors on the board too that kind of keep us in line and answer technical questions as we go along. But it's been a pleasure to work with Mitch and his team. I'm here to tell you at the end of the day, what matters to this hospital and to this management team is the patient. As far as being a director, we are a liaison with the community, and a large majority of the comments that I get from the public is expressing their thanks for the great care that they've got here. The other thing that has been impressed upon me these last few months is the importance of this hospital. During this pandemic, as you well know, this is ground zero. And there's been a lot of planning take place. And as they talk about flattening the curve, biggest reason for that is that the number of cases here at the hospital are manageable. And that has been accomplished. And I think the community's responded, and so far the hospital's been able to handle the issues presented to us, but not without a lot of planning and a lot of work on the part of the hospital to make it happen. Mitch will touch on this, but I don't want to steal his thunder, but the hospital continues under management team's oversight, continues to receive many recognitions by third parties. For example, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that does an audit of the hospital each year. Dixie Regional Medical Center received a 5-star rating just recently from that entity. And I think that's just one of the many indications that things that are happening here are moving in the positive direction, and we continue to get recognition for that. So I'll turn the time back to Mitch, but as far as representing the board, I can wholeheartedly say that the management team is working hard to provide great world-class health care to this entity. Whenever I drive by this, the facility here, I'm just amazed at this campus, how beautiful it is, and just the resources that we have here. Dixie Regional Medical Center is one of the very largest hospitals that is operated by Intermountain, and Intermountain itself sees Dixie Regional as a bright star, which it is. So thank you for this opportunity for me to say a few words, and I appreciate it. Mitch, I'll turn the time back to you.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Brian. Bring world-class healthcare home. We have a real focus on innovation and clinical advancements. And so the latest technology we have here at the hospital is in our heart services. This is Dr. Blake Gardner. He's an interventional cardiologist here at the hospital. He is now able to do what's called the Watchman procedure. He's holding in his hand a Watchman device. This is for patients who have a heart condition called atrial fibrillation, or AFib. And what it does is he can implant this device. What it does is it expands to close off extra space in the left atrial appendage. And what it does for patients that qualify for it is it reduces their risk of stroke from clot formation. So for many patients, it can be very life-saving. And for Ray Lewis in this picture riding his UTV, that certainly was the case for him. So our hospital is very focused on innovation and clinical advancements, and this is the latest example in heart services. We also have some new services at the hospital. Our care is becoming so subspecialized that we have doctors that all they do is care for patients in the hospital with cardiac problems. So we call this our cardiovascular hospitalist program. And all they do, they don't have an outpatient clinic. They don't see patients outside of the hospital. They care for cardiac patients in the hospital exclusively. And our need for children and their care in the hospital is also exponentially grown. And so we also have pediatricians who all they do is see patients in the hospital. They don't have an outpatient practice. Our spine care has become recognized across the country. So we have a contract with a national organization to actually fly people in from other parts of the country to provide spine surgery because of our low cost and high quality outcomes. So we're proud of that. We continue to focus on the future of medicine, which we think is precision medicine and genomics. We're still doing our hereditary population studies. So you can come over to the hospital and for free have your blood drawn and have your gene sequenced. And we're trying to identify genetic anomalies that we can identify early on to get ahead of those diseases before they manifest themselves. We think that's the future of medicine. And then making a healthcare available and accessible 24/7 through mobile devices such as Connect Care is a priority for us. We're very involved in supporting the community. We supply all the sports medicine services for Dixie State University and for every high school in the county. And we recently made a donation to Dixie State University. They're going to be renovating a new sports medicine clinic there on campus. So that allows our physicians and our providers to care for student athletes right there on the campus rather than having them come over to the hospital. This is good news as well. We're breaking ground in January on a new Intermountain Washington Fields clinic. And it's going to have family medicine there, pediatrics, lab, and imaging services. So we're excited for the opportunity to serve people closer to Washington City. And finally, we'll just conclude. I appreciate your time, but certainly if there are any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
Just what street was that on?
So that's on the corner of 1450 South and 3000 East. Across.
So it's, oh, okay. So it's just north of the temple site?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, you've seen the clinic on Sunset over here in St. George near Santa Clara, and the one just in front of the hospital. It's gonna be a clinic about the same size as those to provide primary care services, to be closer to the communities that we serve. More convenient. Other questions?
I have some questions on COVID numbers. I don't know if you're ready for those. You can tell me no, and we don't have to answer them if you don't have them.
I think we're all probably tired of talking about COVID, but go ahead and.
We are, but I figured I got the man on the spot. I'll ask the questions.
Yeah.
My biggest question is, do we have like data that can help us understand where our cases are coming from in our county?
Yeah, so that's all governed through Dr. Blodgett and Southwest Public Health Department. They keep the community statistics because they're broader than just the hospital. So they have a website that contains a lot of information there that I think is helpful, that we also reference ourselves.
Do you know
We're keeping track of the patients that get hospitalized. We also do have data on the number of cases that are being reported on the website for the Southwest Public Health Department as well. But so we know what the transmission rate has been. We know that thankfully there's been a significant downward trend in the number of hospitalized patients with COVID. We're hoping that continues for sure. That's been a refreshing trend here at the hospital.
So how many beds do you currently have filled that has to do with COVID?
Well, we have a total of 322 beds in our hospital. I think today we probably have over 200 patients, but not COVID specific. It's under 10.
Okay, that's good numbers, I think. Good news.
Yeah, for sure. It is. I think it's encouraging.
Mitch, do you see us going to green anytime soon?
I think the county's trying to petition for that, aren't we? Trying to.
I think we're doing, we've already done that, I believe.
Yeah. What we're watching to see is just hopefully these trends continue after school has started. But so far that looks encouraging too. So we certainly hope we can get to green as well, like everyone else.
I have a question for you. With these new facilities that you're doing around the communities, with all the growth that we have, that I suppose helps with minimizing the numbers, or helping with having the facility to handle all the numbers with all the growth that we have. Is that correct to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. The growth has been staggering and continues to be. And so we believe that we can't provide all the services here on the hospital campus. And so what we're trying to do is have like a hub and spoke concept model where we take clinics and we build clinics in smaller in parts of the community where the population lives, because we just don't have enough acreage here on this campus to continue to grow. And it makes more sense for primary care services to be located closer to where people live rather than closer to our hospital. So Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a big part of our strategy. We're running out of land here, so we're looking at other options in the entire county.
I would add that it is a bit of a help with traffic that we all have to deal with. That kind of keeps everybody from having to go clear across the county to get to.
You know, going on River Road there by the Chick-fil-A and that strip mall there, that as much as I like to eat at Chick-fil-A, I often avoid it at lunchtime because you just can't even move. You can't, it's gridlock. Yeah.
You recently decided to change the name of the hospital in January, effective January. Can you explain a little bit what the process was for that and why the name change?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you can see on this slide that name becomes effective January 1. There's two parts to this. There's the announcement of the change, and then there's all the governmental regulations that are required to check a lot of boxes. So it takes at least 120 days, and that's why there's a gap, a time delay between when we made the announcement and when the actual change will take place. But I certainly feel like, you know, the Dixie name is certainly sacred to many people that live here, and it has a special meaning to many people. And also, though, concurrently, as we look across the country, we're recruiting to provide world-class healthcare. We are on the national stage. We have to recruit scientists and physicians from all over the country and sometimes across the globe. And for many people that we recruit not from here, the word Dixie can have offensive connotations. So that was one of the reasons why we made that change. But we certainly want, above all else, a hospital to be a place where people, regardless of where they're coming from, to feel safe and that they're going to be cared for, as well as any other patient or hospital here or in the country.
Was that decision made locally, or was that
Yeah.
made?
That was made locally. Yeah. It was a
And-
local decision. We had no pressure from outside entities, no petitions, no outside influence. It was a decision that we made in conjunction with the growth of our hospital. I live in Santa Clara, but when I travel across the country, when I did travel, and people ask me where I'm from, I told them I'm from St. George. Although I'm from Santa Clara, I felt like it gives them the best chance to understand geographically where I'm located. And that was a big talking point in our decision to change the name of the hospital. When we recruit nationally, oftentimes physicians or other scientists are wanting to make travel plans to Alabama. We have a real problem with trying to identify where our hospital's at with the name Dixie in the hospital's name. And so I think that's an important point as we move forward on the national stage, is St. George is recognizable nationally and even globally. And we felt like that would be the best chance for people to connect with where we're at on the map, given our proximity to the parks. And regional comes into play because we're not just serving patients here locally in St. George, but regionally throughout the entire county and even beyond. So our world-class healthcare services have really broadened the scope of the geographic area where we serve patients, from originally years ago from just Washington County, now to people around the country and around the world. So we felt like the St. George name was going to be more recognizable than Dixie in terms of a geographic identifier.
And there was no concern that the word Saint in front of George might become offensive at some point?
That we haven't gotten.
I'm totally being sarcastic. I understand your reasoning, but
Well, yeah, and that kind of
we
goes
draw the line.
people with the name Dixie changing their names. We certainly aren't advocating that or for anything else. We're focused on the hospital and our national stage, and we just felt like it was, the right thing to do with our growth and who we're trying to serve. So
We're okay with Saint for now. Okay.
it may not, to your point though, who knows, I don't know, but this was a local decision. Yeah. It's a privilege to serve people in this community, and that's where our focus and our efforts are. So any other questions? I'm just grateful for any time we have on your agenda. And these are just annual updates that we provide once a year, and we're always appreciative of your gracious time you allot for us to provide these updates. Healthcare is, I think, important to everybody.
Yeah. Mitch, thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
Thank you for taking your time this evening.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
See you. We'll move on to item 3, discussion of a resolution supporting the alternative regarding the renewal of the reissuance of a right-of-way for the Northern Corridor. The reason I brought this up is the county has asked all the mayors to bring this to their councils and review them. And if there's any questions, comments, concern, that we add, delete, or discuss anything about the Northern Corridor.
Mayor, what do we have an exhibit for these options? Because I swear I've seen one when I was at the MPO meeting at one time, but I couldn't find one right off. And going through these options, I just wanted to refresh my memory reading this ordinance.
I'm sure we do. They probably did not give those to me. This is actually just to review. We don't need to vote on it unless it's for tonight, but
I'm on the St. George or Dixie. I'm on the Dixie MPO website looking for it. I remember seeing it there at one point. Let's see, possibly on maps here. One thing I particularly appreciated about this was the fact that they would expand the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve by 7,000 acres in an area near Santa Clara and St. George to be a habitat for the Mojave Desert tortoise. I think that, among several other points, made the case that this is of a need and of the options that this preferred alternative would be the best. They just, without going through it line by line, I thought that was one among many very good points. The next point, really, just that they anticipate that 22,000 vehicles per day would be using this Northern Corridor by 2040. And you can imagine what that would do to traffic and some of those bottlenecks if this doesn't come forward.
I agree. And one thing to note, that area they're looking to do the swap has way more tortoises than the area. So they're trying to protect more tortoises by doing the swap as well in that area. They found out, the information I've heard is that they found more tortoises in that region than in the Northern Corridor section.
I've actually listened into the HCP discussion for several weeks. And I remember a few weeks ago when we had the fires here, they were really concerned about the number of desert tortoises that not only died in the fire, but would die after the fact due to their food being destroyed. And the numbers that they put out there, I'm not going to say anything because I don't remember exactly, but the number of desert tortoise that was killed was staggering. And I know the question was asked, is that better habitat in regards to the wild, the brush fires? And they felt like that it was probably better out there. But getting, as far as the alignments, what I understand of that is there's several that they have disqualified. The southern alignment was not acceptable because it fails to meet the purpose and needs. And then the T-Bone Mesa, which was the one that I believe was kind of the one that was preferred for a long time. And that one's now has been deemed not as efficient as it need to be. Now the preferred alternative, as it says here, both meets traffic needs and minimize the impact of the desert tortoise. But on the last page where it says, whereas the preferred alternative will be a win for the desert tortoise, I actually drilled down on those statements because I wanted to know, because they cover a pretty big swath where they say the preferred alternative will be a win for the desert tortoise, transportation, private property rights, and area taxpayers. And I do have some specifics as to why that was in there and some of the facts that back that up. But for me personally, I felt like knowing that area quite well, where it's coming through, and having had conversations with Mr. Demas over at Five Counties, discussing the different alignments. They've done a lot of work on this, and I know that the route that will be chosen will not only be the best to move people, but also to protect the desert tortoise. Now, to my understanding, though, the preferred route, has it been announced?
No.
It's still there's so the okay. The preferred.
So I was hoping that Mr. Shaw would kind of help us out, and it looks like at least somebody has. I'm assuming, is that you, Mike?
Stevie.
Yes.
Maybe can you just I know that the city had a couple of staff representatives that would kind of helped out in this process, and if I understand correctly, we got what we wanted out of this alternative, because there were other alternatives that would actually send more traffic through the northern corridor and the Washington Parkway, and this actually doesn't send quite as many, but still kind of accomplishes that east-west movement through the valley.
So if you see on the map there, the it's kind of the purple colored, the UDOT application alignment, that's the preferred alignment. That's the one that Washington City agrees with. It's less traffic, and I don't have the numbers with me, but it's less traffic than the alternate B, the T-Bone Mesa alignment.
Can you zoom in, Mike?
What was that?
Can you zoom in a little bit? There you go. Yes, thank you. That works.
And then there's the, I don't remember the name of the other alignment, but the green colored alignment, that's actually a little less traffic than the purple alignment, which is our preferred alternative. But I believe those three alignments are still in the document. It is in the public comment period. After the public comment period, then they'll finalize the document based on all the comments and get back the final document. Hopefully prior to December. I believe it was November they're pushing to have the final document complete.
So, Mike, just put you on the spot. Do you know where we can look that up? Is that under Northern Corridor public comment, or where are we?
It would be under the BLM. You'd have to go to the BLM because it's their document. They're preparing it. They're doing the document. So it'd be on the BLM's website, and I could actually get that website and give that to Denise, and she can share it with the council.
Great.
So is it set up, Mike, for individuals to make comments?
It is. It's open right now for individuals to make comments.
Okay. Until about December, you think?
No, I think it's closing sooner than that for comment period.
So
I think we're getting down there to where we're within a couple of 3 weeks.
Okay.
this resolution, it looks like it's kind of a draft, but it asks that this be delivered before September 10th, which is tomorrow. And I don't see it on our regular meeting, so it'd be good to know if we want this resolution, if we're in the public comment period still, because while we're discussing it, I don't see it on the next agenda to vote on tonight.
That was my question: is what is our intention with the resolution here?
Well, we kicked that around. Let me ask Mike a question. Let him go. Well, Mike, the yellow route, is that the T-Bone Mesa?
Yes.
And then the green is the southern route, and then the purple is the one that is the preferred route and one that staff has agreed to.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So Mike, that purple one, where it dips down the lowest, where is that low dip area? Where is that actually located generally? Do you know? Looks like it's not very far from the Red Hills Parkway.
Right. So if you see in between the big loop in the green area, that white colored area, that's St. George City owned property.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just behind their water building, power buildings.
Okay.
And then where it ties in is right up about the same spot, the trailhead area.
Mike, is the actual tie-in at the trailhead or just north of that? About
I don't know exactly. I just know it's coming in right
Okay.
around the trailhead area.
that-
Probably a little bit to the north.
So, Mike, do you know, is they planning on building an interchange on Red Hills instead of stopping it, or have they
No,
not
I
got
think
that
they're
far?
actually looking at, there was actually a year or so back, there was 3 or 4 designs of how to alleviate that intersection there. And I don't think anything's been done because we want to get through the draft or get through the environmental before we start any design. You know, when you start any design, it kind of clouds the issue on the environmental that you've already got predetermined locations. And so I think everything's just on hold until the environmental's been adopted and we have a ROD on the environmental.
Mike, do you know if the other cities have signed their resolutions?
I do not.
I don't recall that they have. Maybe St. George has.
St. George, I talked to council member Jimmy Hughes last night, and he said that they had voted on it last week. I think.
Last week.
See, because it looks like the public comment period ends tomorrow. So I'm not sure how we can vote on this tonight where it wasn't on the posted regular meeting, although I know that was probably the intent for bringing this forward.
No, my real intent, I hadn't realized the date, Councilman, was to just let you look at it, digest it, and see if there was anything that this council would want to maybe add or delete or make changes to that. I think they would be fine with us turning it in, maybe vote on it next council meeting.
Do we need to hold a special meeting and get it on this just one item? I'm just
We'd have to give 24 hours. We could do it tomorrow night if we wanted to.
Good, Mayor.
I think we'd have to have it posted, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a time, September 10th. I don't know if there's a specific time.
Sounds like to be effective, we probably need to try and do what we can.
Yeah, it's kind of, I didn't see any public meetings on this either. Notices for I can see some web listings discussing that, but I don't see any. I mean, typically something of this magnitude would have had a number of like open houses and
I'm texting Commissioner Cox to see what his thoughts were, since he's kind of the ramrod of this.
While you're texting, Mayor, I will just chime in here. There's an article I just brought up that BLM to hold meetings on UDOT proposed Northern Corridor, and that was dated in July. And then there's a list, several online meetings, online meetings for the corridor. Let's see if I can get a date on that. It's July 15th. The last ones that I found are, there's a meeting on July 16th and July 21st. That was the last ones that I can find.
As to the resolution itself, having read through it today, I really, like I said earlier, I liked all of the points they made. I'm fine with the verbiage. I don't really have any questions other than just tailoring it to be specific for Washington.
It does read a little bit like the person who wrote it was highly for the option that was listed, but
What I really like about it is that it disqualifies the other routes and possibilities. All of the other routes, they've listed their reasons as to why they're not the preferred option. I really like that. It helps to understand how they arrived at the preferred route.
Yeah. All I'm reading on just a few areas is that public comment period ends September 10th and that they can be emailed. So I suspect that if we did reconvene with 24-hour notice to vote on a resolution, that it could be submitted in time. It doesn't, from what I'm reading, I'm not on the BLM website, but for what I'm reading, it's September 10th by email. I suspect that if we voted on it tomorrow and submitted it, that would suffice.
Yeah, I think we
Is
just did it.
council ready to do that and willing to do that?
Tomorrow. I won't be here till late. I won't be back till late. I'll be out of town.
Till when?
9 o'clock. I'll leave early and back at 9 or thereabouts.
You want to meet at 9?
It's fine with me.
Our
Or
attorney
do you?
can have it
I would
ready.
endeavor to be here
I wish
by
we
9.
would have
I will
addressed
be here by
this
9.
earlier and kind of been more on the schedule with it. I honestly wish that the county or one of their representatives might have made some time to do a full presentation to us. I'm not seeing the need for another meeting for us to.
Well, I think,
So
do we want to, I think the time crunch is just, they would need it in by tomorrow. We can't vote on it tonight.
Right.
And I'm fine with coming in late for when Councilman Bundy would be available.
Maybe be
I
able to
just
do an
don't want
electronic meeting, right? That you could either phone in or call in, depending on how far on the Arizona Strip. I'm just teasing,
that's
Councilman.
exactly what it is, but it is work related.
I'm teasing.
It's a 2.5 hour drive, and
I think Steve has a weather balloon with a cell phone booster.
there you go. That'd work. I do know of a location that I can get cell service near where I'm at. But
That's impressive, actually.
I'm fine late, or I'm fine if there's a convenient cell service. But I lean towards having this meeting and supporting this project.
Well, no matter what, it's got to be past 5:08 if we post it in the next hour. So it'd have to be 6 o'clock at the earliest. And if you're on travel,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm open to late. So if that's what we need
So
to do.
I'm missing the urgency of it being, it needs to be done by tomorrow so that we have so that we're in the loop on this, right? That's what we're thinking.
Denise, are you hearing this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
We
It's
can
after 6.
post it. We would need to post it at 6 o'clock tomorrow, but we can get it posted as a special meeting.
It would need to have the meeting at 6 o'clock.
Well, it just needs 24 hours notice, so we could do it at 5:30
we
tomorrow.
could do it at 7
after, you know.
Councilman Bundy will just be traveling back. So it sounds like 9 p.m. might be the soonest.
Hurry and post it
Oh,
right now.
she's saying she can hurry and post it right now and we can do it
Like a special meeting at 7 o'clock. In the middle
Tonight.
of our other meeting.
Can you
Right.
do one at 9 o'clock?
No, tonight, as a special meeting, during this meeting, she can post it right now to the state website and we'll have it tonight.
What, how does,
Or tomorrow.
don't we have to have 24-hour notice on something like that?
If I post it right now, you guys can call a special meeting tomorrow at 6:30 and approve this or make your recommendation. And I'll hurry and get it reposted. I
Then
can't,
what we're asking is, can we post it and then have our meeting at 9 o'clock
tomorrow night?
tonight?
Yeah, sure. I can post it for 9 o'clock tomorrow.
So I would ask the council what we're hoping to accomplish by doing that action. I mean, I do kind of lament that I mean, this is just kind of tagged on to Washington, and I wish they had reached out to us earlier. I wish that they would have involved us more. I'm not really seeing, I'm just trying to decide, like, what are we hoping to accomplish by running around, having a meeting, approving this? We haven't worked over the language of this. We would either, I guess, adopt it as is.
So, Mayor, to answer Councilman Ward, is this resolution is just to show the city's wants it,
Is
is
for support of
for
it.
support of it, right?
But they'll include us with the other municipalities that will have it done in that.
It's a resolution supporting the preferred alternative regarding the renewal of the Washington County Desert Tortoise Incidental Take Permit and the issuance of a right-of-way for the Northern Corridor. That's what this resolution is about.
But the issuance of a right-of-way,
It's not been decided yet.
Through the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve.
but that's not going to be an issuance of a right-of-way for anything in Washington City. I mean, we're not taking any action on any kind of a binding. This is purely resolution of support for this option here.
I think part of that is, I understand, is to affirm that Washington City wants to see the road go through from Washington through to Highway 18. I think
We're
that's
showing our
primarily,
support.
the exact location is yet to be determined, but we do want to see that go through, or at least that's the question, I believe, the main thing.
So again, all I'm seeing is symbolic support of something. I wish it was handled differently. I'm not seeing the need to act urgently to do this.
But I think we
I think
have to
it-
have it
it
in
just doesn't
before the
amount to enough.
September 10th date to get on that. So that's why I think.
No, I understand the dating of it. And again, I wish that they had brought this to us earlier. I wish it would come to us. I wish it would have come to us in a different way. Would have liked for Washington to have been more a part of that, but we weren't. We didn't. I don't feel any urgency to act on their inaction.
In all fairness, I think we learned about this just as our meeting got over, so we put it on the very next one. That's where I remember it.
And Mayor and Councilman Ivy, you've been attending various parts of the MPO, I think. Has this been a discussion there with Washington City's input, or?
Actually, our manager, Roger, and Mike were the ones mostly involved in that. So Mike, are you listening to this conversation?
Yes, Mayor.
And the purpose of this resolution is just to offer our support for it, correct? Because they haven't really designated the routes yet. This isn't designating the route.
Yeah, it's putting our support towards basically the three routes that, if you read through the resolution, it's saying that we're the route through St. George, through the residential area that's not acceptable. And it's just basically that we are in favor of proceeding with one of the three routes being chosen after the environmental draft's being done.
We have a preferred alternative there that we would like, but any of the three is better than none, right?
Correct.
Well, there are some issues with this. I mean, Washington residents of the Green Spring area will carry the burden of this type of a road. We help our neighbor cities connect in a way, but I mean, you have to remember that this road literally runs down the backyards of some of our residents, and there's a little bit of history to that. I would not support some of the alternatives on this. I'm glad that the preferred alternative comes out with a reduction in traffic and travel, but this is no other city is going to have this running through residential areas. I mean, the one that was for St. George to have any kind of an alternative that way got written off and taken off as infeasible. But so this is, I think this is probably a good thing. The area needs it, but it is, I lament a little bit of the alignment and the way it comes about for Washington.
So to clarify, this resolution states that the Red Hills Parkway Expressway is unacceptable. It states that the southern alignment alternative is unacceptable. It says the T-bone alignment alternative is the most efficient, but it's not the best. What this resolution says is it supports the purple one there, which is the preferred alternative because it both meets the traffic needs and minimizes impacts to the desert tortoise. And the resolution states that this is the preferred alternative. That's the one that supports. However, the T-bone alternative would be the next choice, but it does eliminate support for the southern alignment and the Red Hills Parkway Expressway.
And the T-bone alignment, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and Mike was having trouble with the numbers himself, but that is significant more traffic through that area if with the T-bone alignment.
And the other thing it says on this is it would have a greater impact on the recovery of the Mojave Desert tortoise because this alignment is further inside the RCDR, the RCNCA, than the preferred alternative. So I believe that one's the yellow. So
our color coding is kind of cut off in the top here. I'm not sure. It's at the top right there. It looks like, yeah. Alternative, yeah.
Is the T-bone. So that would be, so they're saying the preferred alternative is the purple. That the resolution says that their second choice would be the T-bone.
So we had a 90-day period. So
why? I don't know why it's called T-bone.
We have more time.
we do not have more time. He said the day
because of the
was a
intersection. That
90-day
makes sense,
period and it
Councilman.
started in June. So, sorry, Councilman Staley, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Mayor.
So
Through NEPA, the NEPA Act, you had 90 days, and that 90 days started June 12th or so, June 10th. So we have 90 days. So we would need to do a special meeting.
I appreciate Councilman Ward's concerns. I'm a little new here, so I haven't heard much of anything about it other than what I've read. But
I don't mean to interrupt you, but none of us have because they haven't reached out to us in any fashion before.
But we've had
I apologize for interrupting.
We've had a representative on the MPO though.
We had a staff representative.
Well, the mayor's been there. I went to one and we talked about it. So I know we've talked about it.
They've talked about it, but not officially presented it to you.
Yes, I'll admit.
I don't know if they've officially presented it to any of the other communities either.
Did they? I'm just curious because I remember hearing about it in past councils, but maybe it was through Councilman Turek at the time explaining it. I don't remember anyone personally from the MPO coming here. I just remembered Councilman Turek.
This has been on the radar for a number of years. I was frankly surprised to find out that we were in the public comment period. I had a resident ask me about this some time ago, and I knew we were well in the process of moving this, but I had no idea we were in the public comment portion of this. And I like personally, you were kind of trying to describe where the alignment of this actually fit in on the map. I don't really have a good sense of where those come through. I have a vague sense of where some of them are, but I haven't had enough chance to actually see where that is. And again, I apologize. I kind of stepped over top of when you were speaking. I'm going to.
Yeah, I guess my thought is and again, I appreciate, maybe a lack of input or opportunity to know a little more about this, but it sounds like we're at a point where we just simply need to be in favor. We don't have a choice. One of those three alignments, it's beyond that. I mean, those are set, and we aren't going to have any opportunity for any input, regardless of the fact that we didn't perhaps get that kind of input. So I think we need to make the statement that we do want to see it go through the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, and whether it's any one of those three alignments is better than none.
So a couple of times in your comment, if I just respond to you, a couple of times in your comment, you're saying that we need to do that, and we don't. If we don't do anything with this will move along just fine without us. So I would actually put the burden on the rest of the council or anybody who wants to meet again tomorrow to say, to tell me why we would need to take that action. I realize I'm coming out and I'm expressing some concerns and some things about this. I have mixed feelings about it on both sides. I probably largely am for it. But again, I don't think we need to, and I think the way that it was presented to us kind of shows that they don't think we need to either. But
So then the question I guess I would have is, what is the danger for us, if you will, or the problem if we do go ahead with it, regardless of the input that we've had? Is there, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking I would like to make the statement that we want that road to go through there regardless of anything in the past, and I don't want us to lose that opportunity. In my mind, I've known about this Northern Corridor for a long time, as well as many of you have, and it needs to be there for everyone somewhere through that Red Cliffs Desert Reserve. So,
Well, me personally, I am comfortable with the information. I've attended some of the meetings, and we actually went over and visited with Fife County with Myron and Dave, and we talked about the different routes, and the information that I wanted was the absolute need for it, because they presented some numbers of what it was going to look like in the years to come without it, and I am concerned about how it could possibly have some negative impact for our residents in Green Springs at the north end. I'm not oblivious to that, but I do think that we need to show our support for our county. And not only that, but our legislators and also our senators, our congressmen that have worked on this. I think we need to be a part of the decision. And as I said, I'm comfortable with the information that I know about it, but that's just my own take.
Hey, Mayor, I don't want to pretend I don't read the signs well, and that is, my hand's been up for a while, and I wasn't called on because nobody wanted to hear from me. But let's don't forget, I mean, there is a well, and you can certainly wave me.
If I could, the map is covering up your hand raise, so we've gotten a little shifted there.
Oh,
we didn't ignore you on purpose. Sorry.
Yeah, so I apologize also to Denise and Tara, because I had some comments to make as they were going through their notice provisions, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe this council just smartened up and realized Starkey has really no answers. But certainly one provision to remember under the Utah municipal noticing provisions is that there's always this catch-all provision for emergency meetings in which the 24-hour minimum notice requirement is waived. It's subsection 5 of the state law, and it simply reads, notice requirement may be disregarded if, and here are your conditions. And nobody's really good on these. We've used it before in cases where we needed to, because we wouldn't have council members or whatever it was, or we needed to finish out contracts. Because of unforeseen circumstances, it's necessary for a public body to hold an emergency meeting to consider matters of emergency or urgent nature. And the public body gives the best notice practicable of the time and place of that emergency meeting, the topics to be considered at the emergency meeting, and an emergency meeting may not be held unless an attempt's been made to notify all the members of the public body, which is you guys, and the majority of the members of the public body approve the meeting. So this would be a case, typically it's not a case where you're all gathered together at one time. It's when we're trying to get a majority of you together to say, we've got to decide whether, we're going to object to, legislation coming through or something. You try to get as many of you as you can possible who agree to have the meeting. I don't know, this may be one of those urgent matters that we weren't familiar with all the subject matter of it, and that the council feels that in this particular case, we've got to have a meeting because we feel necessary to either give a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or an amendment to a resolution, which has to be presented by tomorrow.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm really, if this was a slam dunk and didn't have any potential of harm for any of our residents, I might be okay with that, but I still cannot see that this raises to the level of emergency. So, and I think it's vastly unfair for us to post this up with a short amount of time. I'm fairly certain that we have some residents who would like to respond to this. And I realize we're not going to have an open public comment about this, but we're not even posting this up with enough notice for residents who might be interested to even notify their neighbors to say they're actually voting on this. I just don't feel comfortable, especially not with an emergency. And I really don't feel comfortable, honestly, with.
That's your guys' call. I just want to make sure you're aware of that anyway.
I appreciate you letting us know that there's options.
This might be helpful maybe if Mike could. So Mike, is there a way you can just quickly describe what the difference between this, because we dealt with an issue about the Northern Corridor in 2015 in which the public comment period for us meant, almost a week straight working out of my office and submitting a massive set of documents for the regional management plan of Red Cliffs, which involved Northern Corridor. That's when we last had this discussion, and it occupied a lot of our time, Mike, as you'll remember. And in fact, one of the biggest issues was we weren't invited to the table as a participating or coordinating agency. So Mike, how is this different than what the comment period and the issues were back in 2015 with the RMP as it came through?
So the difference between the two is that was the management plan for the reserve itself. This is just the environmental for the Northern Corridor. Now, also with this, keep in mind, this is not an MPO document. This is not a UDOT document. This is a BLM document. They're very specific on how they advertise it, the comment periods. So the advertisement for this has been out. It's been in the local newspapers. They've had the comment periods out. Even as far as our staff reviews back to council, the council meetings, there's been several of those where we said this is out for review. As far as staff, we've actually made our comments back, emailed our comments back on this. So the BLM's not going to come and give us necessarily a presentation on it. They're going to want to tell you, read the document, make your comments off of the document. And the document's been available since June.
Yeah, and so in 2015, when it came through as part of an RMP, which is a much broader and bigger piece of legislation, the county, Washington County, actually hired a full-time attorney just to make responses. That's how important or how critical the issues involved at that time were. So we're talking here of something of a lesser magnitude anyway, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and that first document, that really set the ground rules for moving to this document.
And this also looks like it extends the taking period for which the municipals development can go forward.
That I don't
It
know.
renews the incidental take permit that was originally done in 1996.
Yeah, but when I moved down here, Steve Snow was working on that when I moved down to St. George years ago. Was working on that aspect of that that incidental take matter. So that's why it's a little different, at least from some perspectives. We put a ton of time and energy into the regional management plan. But again, I think that's because it was a whole different thing. But also, I think it really focused how important the Northern Corridor was to all the municipal and county entities out here. So, okay. Anyway, thanks, Mike.
Councilman Ward, could I ask you, I agree. I think you commented that this is going to have a significant impact on residents in Washington, probably more so than obviously St. George, current and future residents of Washington. So if there are those in that area, you indicated might have some comment, are you thinking that their comments would be contrary to that road going on through, or just trying to get a feel for?
Oh, I'm certain that there are residents of the Green Springs area that would that do not want to see this go through, and felt like that they were in a protected area that wouldn't have this type of thing go through. And as a representative body, as a representative personally, I don't want to see that. Now, I leave it at you gentlemen. If you feel like it's necessary to do that, I don't need to prolong this further. If you're welcome to do that, but I'm personally in opposition to it. And I think it's just not necessary. Okay. And a little bit unfair for us to do it.
And I guess my thoughts are, I've stated earlier that, that needs to go through for a lot of reasons, but I look back to when it was the Red Cliff Desert Reserve was created in 1996. That was a plan then for this road. And when that document was created, this road was intended to go through before there were any residents in that area. And, whether that satisfies anyone or not, I'm sure if I were in that area, I would be concerned about it as well. But that's where I'm coming from, I guess, when I make the comment that it should go through, and it's been planned to go through for,
And again, I'm taking too much time. I keep commenting, but my preference with something like this, which is a hard decision, growth is a difficult thing. Increasing road and traffic is a difficult thing. My preference for something like that is to have it noticed up. People can talk about it. We can respond intelligently with time and say, yes, I hear your concerns. I see that there are some problems with this. We prefer this because we think it does this and this. By condensing that into a 24-hour period, I feel like that's many of those good aspects, which I love about the process, are taken from us and from our citizens. And I'm going to try and quit talking.
Well, I just wanted to follow up on what Councilman Bundy said. Is I've personally known about the Northern Corridor for 16 years. Me personally, I've known about it, and that's why the right-of-way was set at 106 feet wide back then, is to accommodate for a potential wider road for the Northern Corridor. Now, I know in my line of field, that's why I know about it, and the standard resident isn't going to understand that 106 foot right-of-way is 3 lanes, but the sections have been at the city's office for at least, we'd have to ask Mike, but at least 12 years that I know of. So it's been out there before the development got to it. And I do understand their concern, but it's been on the plan, and it's not like we're moving it to their backyard after the fact. It's been there. We've said it was 106. This is the plan now. We never said it was going to be the Northern Corridor, but we also planned just in case, because we didn't know how it would land.
And we're having the discussion about an official vote on this resolution only because we realized that the time that the public comment closes is tomorrow. But the fact that this was a topic of discussion for the work session has been properly noticed and without public comment. And even if this were on the regular meeting agenda tonight, it wouldn't be a topic with public comment either. It would just be a resolution. This is the discussion for it. Essentially what we're doing is saying, since this did not get put on the agenda for this evening and the deadline is tomorrow, we're holding a special meeting to have that vote up or down. And I think with that vote, each of us can reread through this resolution, take any public comment that we've had or will have between now and then, and take that into consideration as we vote. But my preference is that we have that meeting tomorrow night and bring it to an up or down, whether or not this council supports it or not. And that's what we do. We discuss it and then we vote.
And you could also take some time to answer any questions that you may have. I know that MPO people might be very willing and able to sit down and visit with you about it, but I concur. I think that we need to have a meeting tomorrow night and and decide how we want to approach this or how we want it to go forward.
Just one other thought, a comment, and I don't know all the details, but as it discusses in the document, this incidental take is important for growth in certain areas. I don't know this would affect the area that will be growing along the Washington Parkway that has just recently been constructed, but I have an idea it may. I don't know if anyone knows that here, or if Mr. Shaw knows that, but it could have some influence on, because if we don't have this document, incidental take might be an issue if it were not. I don't know. I don't know the
Incidental
answer.
take, help me understand what you're trying to say. Incidental take, I don't understand. the term.
So my understanding is incidental take allows development to come and move, as I understand it, move tortoises to a different location out of the way of any future development. Mr. Shaw, is that correct? Generally?
Yes, that's generally correct. So it doesn't mean that they're moving the habitat line. It's just if there is tortoise that's outside that habitat, that's the incidental take area. They've been cleared. It's okay, and that's part of moving it. Without having that language in there, you now could own private ground that's not in the habitat that would be locked out because we don't have that incidental take permit.
So if we were to not approve this document, would that adversely affect that development in that area?
I don't think so, because I'm not sure why that's really part of this right-of-way area. I just don't know enough about why they put that in there. The incidental take goes along with the establishment of
yes.
the Red Cliffs Reserve. Otherwise, it would fall under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and our local people wouldn't be able to administer the habitat here, and then that take is completely gone away.
Well, and I think what it does is there's an updated and amended county habitat conservation plan. And so this basically updates the incidental take to coincide with that plan. And from what I read, especially with establishing 7,000 acres of expanded tortoise habitat, it's quite environmentally friendly. And especially with the preferred route, they also provide for the crossways for the tortoise, so that from what I read, from what I'm understanding, that allows them to cross from one section to another. But like Councilman Ivy referred to earlier, is this other area would also allow for the desert tortoise to be protected and be able to, especially if we have fires like we recently did in that area, where not only do they potentially get burned, but then all of their food gets burned up and they would need to be transported potentially to eat. I'm not an environmentalist, but it seems like the county is doing everything they possibly can to make this environmentally friendly, but also being realistic with the traffic that the future will be with what it would be without and what it would be with, and certainly with that much traffic, we'll have to make that decision whether we want to support it or not.
Yeah, I think that's a good point with the additional acreage that will come in with this. I think that's why they would have to amend the plan and amend the take in the plan. And then just two quick other things just for your information. It was 2006, the council adopted the road cross section for Washington Parkway. Actually, it was called Northern Corridor at that time. It has been on the city's master plan since 1994, and it was called out as the Northern Corridor up until probably the 2010 plan.
My impression is that we want to move forward with this meeting tomorrow.
I have to wear a tie to that meeting, Mayor.
But technically, when you say you have to, we don't have to have the meeting, but I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you. So noted, Councilman Ward.
In case anybody was on the fence and wondering
Councilman
what
Bundy, do you want to join us via phone?
Thinking 9 o'clock then, or
If we
if
do
we
9 o'clock, can you
we do
make
it
it?
at 9, I'll just make a point to be back.
Denise, did you hear that?
I apologize for that, but
Not
We
a
better-
problem. I'll go ahead and set up I'll go post right now for a meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
That okay? All right, thank you.
All right. That's it for this evening. Why don't you take a 15-minute break and we'll re-adjourn.
A motion that we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. No, that's fine. And I that's kind of why, well, sorry.
You got a minute.
So close, all of a sudden I saw these reflections, I'm going, the camera's off, I go, oh, they got the spit guards up. Yeah. So I thought, oh, that's still good. I know, where it really counts. Where it really counts, yeah.
I'm glad we're spread out at least a little more because we were pretty tight anyways.
Not bad. How about yourself? Like deja vu, deja vu. Yeah, I'm used to seeing you right there. We may want to just put a yeah, and that way I can address and see people talk whatever, so it's, yeah. That would probably work. Since we got this computer set up here, it wouldn't take that much, to be honest with you. sudden all these changes.
It's really exciting.
Trailer. So I'll trade you for now until I see you next. I don't want to trade back. See what you since you got all these super tight spot. I actually bought that to give him at some point. I actually bought it for him then, and I just. He's got maybe he gets married or graduates or something. You know, Cindy.
She's still working on it. That she got it. Awesome. A lot of hours left. Hands-on. So excited. So Mayor, you have now 2 MMC reports. Yes, Tara just got notice that she got her MMC. Yes. Master Municipal Clerk. So anyway, when we find out when they come to present it, I can get her on. So during COVID, Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was. They had talked to you, and because I had talked to him once today and said, okay, you really need to speak to the city treasurer. He's over your buildings and the receivement of payments. Maybe there's something that can help you with. And then next thing I know, I got a phone call. Okay. Because that, she read it.
Smaller chain in a shell. Yeah. But I don't know. It's that bad. You think they're going somewhere. Everybody else is going to go off come on, when we're done for the summer, you can have it in winter with no problem. You don't need it. Yeah. Say that about them. Also, don't put the you've got 3 back. You get all of them. But you care for makes sense if that was the thing. Is that why they call that one T-bone? Or is it because it's T-bone based? That's what it's called. So that's what I thought. Someone said, oh, I call it T-bone. I go, it's T-bone Mason. So it must be like, yeah. So what's the step? We all have stories like this. Kids, things we did that now you look back on. That's what I know. Personal.
Well, now you told us.
And now you do that. It's better.
That's all right.
Yes, that's okay.
The guy that's 18.
Okay. Welcome to our city council meeting. We are continuing to have our city council meeting available to all the public via internet. And if you'd like to join us, the link is washingtoncity.org/meetings. We welcome and invite you to attend if you could. Our invocation will be given by Councilman Staley, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be offered by Councilman Ward.
Please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Move on to item 1, approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda as outlined for the
Thank-
September 9th, 2020 meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second by Staley.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 2, announcements.
Yes, Mayor, I have some announcements. The City of St. George has reached out seeking some volunteers for the rodeo. A lot of their regulars with the Lions Club are older and they're afraid to go out in with the COVID conditions. So they're looking for volunteers that could possibly cook hamburgers on Wednesday the 16th, Thursday the 17th, or Friday the 18th from 6 to 10. And if you will get that information to me, if you can or not, I will coordinate that. I told the mayor that I'm good at cooking pancakes because he taught me, but I don't know about hamburgers, but I'm going to try. I will try.
What were those dates again, Councilman Ivey?
It's next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, excuse me.
Of next week.
And then
What? Sorry.
We have a meeting on
What's the date? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What, like starting 1 September?
I think I'll get it for you right here. It
Sorry.
is the 17th, 18th, and 19th, I believe. Doesn't the rodeo always goes from Thursday to Saturday, right? Yeah, I believe so. From 6 to 10. And then if you'll let me know what you can do. I know that the youth council is planning to be there to help on Saturday night after our retreat. But I know they would really appreciate anyone that could help with that. And as I said, if you'll get that to me, then I'll forward it and get back to you on exactly when that would be. And then the last thing, Mayor, is this Friday is September 11th, our traditional celebration at Washington Elementary and at Riverside Elementary with a good principal out there, Burke Staley. They have traditionally done a an honor to our local heroes, our police, firefighters, and first responders. But this year, it's with the COVID situations in the schools, observing masks and those things, they've adjusted that. And what they're asking for is that the city officials and our heroes would show up between 9 and 11 on Friday morning, and they want to just visit a classroom and do something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but if you're available. And then just late this afternoon, I sent you an email regarding a 9/11 ceremony. It'll be held in St. George on Main Street, thereby, I'm assuming by the splash pad or right in that area, right close there. But they're having a little ceremony to honor our police officers, firefighters, and first responders there. And that'll be from 5:30 to 7. And that is a regional activity. We appreciate Dave Cadero and St. George extending that offer to us. So if any of you can make those events, that would be great. Thank you.
Councilman Ivy, the 9 o'clock, is that at both Washington and at Riverside, or just at Riverside?
I am not familiar, excuse me, I'm not familiar with
Where it's going to be.
with Riverside's time frame. I know that our heroes are planning to be there. All I know is that the time at Washington Elementary, they've just said it's just kind of a walk-in.
Okay.
And during, not that it'll last that long, but if you want to walk in and they would take you down and maybe share a message with a classroom.
Okay.
And then pop back
At Washington.
And that's at Washington.
Okay.
And I'm sure Principal Staley has got something planned. I know that he does. I'm not aware exactly the time on that, but I'm sure if you reached out to him
I will.
tomorrow,
Thank you.
anyone that's interested, they always have a nice celebration there also.
Thank you.
Mayor, it's Chief. Can I let you know that time?
For Washington Elementary, it's between 9 and 11. And then over in St. George is between 5:30 and 7 on South Main Street. I'm thinking that it's going to be right there, as I said, by the splash pad, by the tabernacle, I believe, right in that area. But Chief, please, it'd be great to see whoever could be there to give you and your department, and Chief Evans, your department, all the recognition that you deserve for not only the good service, but the response that we've done over the past several months in response to COVID and being able to keep the city running so smoothly and safely.
On that event for Riverside Elementary, that's on September 11th from 9:30 a.m. is when that starts. And I can email you this invitation from Principal Staley to your email. So
That'd be great. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, Denise has an item of business.
Roger, would you like to come down? We'll do your oath of office. You get it posted on there. Okay. Raise your right hand and state your name.
Do you,
There you go. Just get it closer. There you
We'll
go.
just get loud right here.
There you go.
How's that? Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
I, Roger,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll support, obey, and defend
that I'll support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
I also solemnly swear
I also solemnly swear
that I'll support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the laws and ordinances
the laws and ordinances
of Washington City,
of Washington City,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with Denise. She's got that down,
Down,
memorized.
that's right.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. And officially welcome, Councilman Bundy. We appreciate your willingness to serve with us. Do you have an
Just a
announcement?
few other dates.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
announcements.
Let's do those. Yeah.
Before we move along, October 5th has been on the schedule for Washington City Night. I believe the time frame was 6 to 8. Mayor, I think the staff's probably looking for direction as to whether or not that's a go or not.
I would
Probably
like to make it a go. If there's any staff that has any reservations, would you just let me know? But let's move forward with it.
Okay, the time frame that they're talking is 6 to 8 p.m. that night. And then October 13th, which is a Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. is the Main Street ribbon cutting grand opening. And then at 6 p.m. will be the Boilers, a natural spring and conservation garden ribbon cutting and grand opening with refreshments. And they anticipate that will last till about 7 o'clock. And we'll see if they want us to get creative on how we get from the bottom of Main Street to the top to the Boilers, whether they want us to ride
We
bikes,
need to ride
e-bikes,
bikes.
or
We
just
need to ride bikes.
So
And then being your short, so we can all do a cannonball into the Boilers.
that sounds good.
Can we make sure we get those on our calendars? Those dates,
Yes.
because that's a month away, and that's a month of thinking. That's hard for me after that.
We'll make sure, Tara, would you or Denise make sure those get on our calendars, those dates? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councilman Staley.
You're welcome.
That it, Chris? Councilman? Thank you. Thank you. We actually have another meeting before that we can announce too, so it'll be great. Thank you. Okay, any other announcements? Item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare from this council?
Mayor, I have item 4CI that I will abstain on the vote for that approval.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 4, our consent agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes. To consider to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 8/12, 8/20, and 8/26, 2020. The board audit report, to approve the board audit report for August 2020, and to approve the final plat for the Brio subdivision phase 3F, located approximately 200 West Sunstone Way, with Co-West as the applicant. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
The one question,
Okay.
I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I always go through the board audit. The only question I really have is I noticed that Hinton Burdick advisors, CPAs and advisors, has billed for our audit. And so I just wanted to know if staff knew when that audit might come before us. It seems like traditionally that's October or November.
Kimberly, are you there?
Anyone?
Brian, are you there?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Did you hear the question?
Could you just repeat that? I was on the
Sure.
board audit, right?
No, this would be our city audit done by Hinton Burdick CPAs. I just noticed that we've paid for that on page 18 of the board audit. I'm just wondering when that full audit report will come before the council. It seems like it's in the fall, but I'm just wondering if you have a time frame.
Yes, that's just a progress billing. It will come to the council the first meeting in December.
Not until December, okay. Well, Mayor, do you mind if I ask her just a couple other quick questions?
Absolutely.
Kimberly, I noticed on page 6, we have a billing for Suntran operations for August, $23,591.42. Is that the monthly amount then for Suntran?
The billing comes through from Suntran in regards to that specific one. If it's the ongoing monthly cost, I would have to double check that. If Mike is available, he might be able to give some more specifics. All the billing reviews on Suntran run through Public Works.
I'm just looking to get a little bit of an idea on what the monthly outlay is, and then if I remember correctly, there were some funds that are covering that now.
That's our monthly billing on that. That includes our cost of paying for the bus It's amortized out over, I think it's a 5-year period. We pay a monthly installment plus the cost of the ridership. And the money that we collect to pay for that is the transit funding we got out of that 0.25% sales tax that the county adopted.
Gotcha.
23,591.42. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda at this time.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined on our packet for the approval of the minutes for 8/12, 8/20, 8/26, the board audit report for August 2020, and the final plat for Brio subdivision phase 3F.
Thank you. I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. We'll do a roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
IVI.
Coates, aye.
All right.
Bundy, aye, except for item 4CI.
Thank you. Those are approved. Item 5, final plat amendment. Consideration to approve the final plat amendment for Wilbur Acres amended number 3 for the purpose of amending lot 2 by changing the common property in the rear. Property is located approximately 960 South, 1900 East, applicant Fred and Mary Buska.
Thank you, Mary. Is that exhibit showing up on your screen? Okay.
It is. I could use a little more zooming in though, if you have it. Yeah, great.
Okay. Is that okay there? We'll
Good.
just move forward and then you can ask what you need. The applicant is requesting approval of an amended final plat, again, as stated by the mayor, for the Wilbur Acres amended number 3 subdivision. The reason for the amendment request is to simply to turn the limited common area associated specifically on lot 2 into private ownership for that lot. This kind of change occurred on other lots within the specified subdivision on previous occasion. In fact, every other lot except lot 2. Lot 2 was not part of those previous amendments, but is now taking advantage of turning the limited common area into private ownership. Staff's reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds it conforms to the heavy industrial zoning or I2 zoning designation. The subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of Washington City. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their September 2nd meeting last week, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the amended final plat for the Wilbur Acres amended number 3 subdivision onto you, the City Council. And that's based on the original findings and subject to the original conditions of the plat. And again, those are our standard findings and conditions anyway. And so I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have on this amended Wilbur Acres.
So Drew, I have a question. This is along the canal. I see that there's a 25-foot St. George Washington Canal easement, and along with the public utility, we need to include a trail easement as well on that for future trail if there ever is a need. We've been trying to coordinate the trails all along this canal, and I think it's essential as part of this that we make a condition that also include any trails.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that. I'm not sure if it follows this one, but I can make sure. Do you know?
It'll either be, you can't build anything on it besides a walking path or a roadway. And I don't know if it follows the master plan or not in this specific area, but I think it's important to, since it is coming for amendment, that we get the trail easement on top of this as well.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that if that's appropriate to put that there. And I'm not saying it'd be inappropriate. I just know if the rest of the trail system runs through there or not. So
well, currently it doesn't, but I'm saying as far as my recommendation is that I will make it a condition if that's to move forward that we have it. So I appreciate you looking into it, but I think that's a condition we need to have on this.
Okay. It is in Barry's master plan as a trail.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Drew, could you pull this up on our Washington City map and just pull up the border of the property there?
It's an existing site with existing
Right.
businesses, right?
Oh, I don't know what happened there. That should not have.
Google gone.
All right, let's start over. Hey, let me just get my pencil and I'll give you an idea where.
Well, I was hoping that you could actually click on it and pull up the property boundaries.
The property boundaries of lot 2.
Yeah. Basically, if you just kind of click on the parking lot. Yeah. Nope. I didn't grab
Oh,
it.
Yeah. That's the property boundary right now because the rest of it's in limited
Okay.
common area. So it's this number 2 right
The
here.
lines are just a little light. I couldn't see some of them, but yeah, it's pulling the same thing for me. So is that the correct alignment?
Yes.
Okay. So we're, so the lot 2 is going to be owned by,
It already is owned, but right now the area around here, I'll do it in red.
Yeah.
This little L-shaped kind of piece on the plat is called limited common area.
okay.
So they want to turn it into full ownership. So this rectangle here in the blue will turn where the red is all the way over here. And that's what all the other folks have done. You can see these guys did it right here. And these guys did it back in here. And, you know, where my X's are, these used to all be limited common area. And then lot 1, you know, all this area here, they came and amended and added all this as their private ownership around their building. For some reason, when the subdivision was originally drawn, they just did the buildings as private ownership. And then they gave certain of the 10, you know, the owners, certain area for limited common. You know, that was theirs, because when you have a limited common, it means it's kind of used for you next to your private ownership. And then everybody came back and says, I don't know why we did this. Let's just turn our limited common into our ownership. And everybody else did it except lot 2 previously, years gone by. And now the owner of lot 2, I think, is saying, oh, now I get why everybody did that. So they're coming back and amending.
2 things for my education. One, can you just take a guesstimate on when you say years gone by, when was that previously done?
I've been here for 14 years and they did, 2 of them originally did it before I was here.
Okay.
And then 2 of them did it since I was here, but that's been at least 10 years ago, I'm thinking.
So, and then, yes, thank you. And then for my education, what rights and benefits does that give them to take this motion?
Well, the rights it gives them, it's their full ownership. Limited common is in a sense what it is. Common area means everybody owns it. Okay, just like any other subdivision. And limited means you have more rights than the other guys do, but it's still under the common open space area. So there's still a potential of problem if you don't outright own it. And that's all they're doing is just saying, hey, we're in a subdivision. We just want more ownership of our parking lot, our storage area as private ownership, not limited common. If that, I hope that helps you understand that.
Perfect. That's perfect. And then but as I'm reading this and looking at this, all of the parking areas are still going to remain common then.
Well, this is the county map we're pulling up, and sometimes it's not as, and so I want to go back to the exhibit and just show you the plat. And yeah, you can kind of see, let me get rid of those red lines. But everything that has a hash mark is private. And everything that's white, like all the parking areas, are left in. So it's a shared common area, which is what it should have been anyway. Because if you don't, you have to give everybody legal ingress and egress easements. So I like they did the parking area in the common area, as common ownership. So this is much better than having ownership, limited common, and full common on a plat.
And then the little area with the little slight point on it that kind of points to the north there, that's just parking, I guess,
Let's go.
in those two buildings. Well, to you, it's on the right there, mid right. It just, yeah.
Oh, this little area here.
'Cause that's literally right in between the two buildings, right?
It is. And let me go back and see what that's showing up. Yeah, I think what it is, this allows, instead of having a line split through there, let me zoom in on it. Because this allows both these two property owners in common area to get back to their property here and here, even though they may not need it. This guy looks like he comes in off of 1900 East anyway, but yeah, it was probably wise just to leave that as an access point to the back area.
Well, yeah, it looked like this had been done a long time ago, and just curious to know. So
Yeah.
thank you for the bringing me up to speed.
Drew, this is Councilman Ivy. Where it was done such a long time ago, is there any reason that a title search should have been done just to make sure that there's no disputes over those lines?
I think when we do an amended plat, we'll probably make them do that anyway. That's generally one of the things we require before we get them recorded, is everybody we have to get a current title report. So that's part of our process anyway.
Thank you.
I would be surprised if you have not already received one. It might need to be updated, but there's probably already one been submitted.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
No, Mayor, I'm comfortable making the motion on this.
Thank you.
I feel good about it. I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plat amendment for Wilbur Acres, amended number 3, for the purpose of amending lot 2 by changing the common property in the rear. Property is located at 900 South, 1900 East, and the applicant is Fred and Mary Buska.
Just one correction, if I could, it's not common, but limited common was the change. Isn't that right? It's going from the,
Yes.
from the limited
Common to
common
private.
to a private, not common.
Changing the common to private.
Do you want to add the condition in your motion for the trail
Easement.
within the existing 25-foot canal easement?
Yeah, do you want me, I may just start over. Okay. I make a motion to approve the final plat amendment for Wilbur Acres, amended number 3, for the purpose of amending lot 2 by changing the private property in the rear. Property is located 960 South, 900 East. The condition would be that there would be a canal easement located on the, I'm not sure the director.
So the trail would be located within the existing canal easement.
Within the existing canal easement. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Coates will second.
By way of just comment, to just inject it while we're still on the item here, I appreciate and even though this is a final plat, not having this attached to the consent agenda for the type of discussion we already had. So appreciate whose ever idea that was, and mayor's leadership in getting that way.
Thank you, Councilman. I have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilman Bendy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's approved. Item 6, resolution, continuation of a consideration to approve a resolution adopting low impact development application guidance. Lester Dalton.
Mayor, Council, it's good to see you guys this evening.
Shane?
We're back once again for continuation on adoption of this LID manual to accommodate the mandates that have been placed upon us from the state. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions, comments, concerns that you may have on this item.
I do have some questions as I reviewed this, and I appreciate Lester for going over that in detail with me the other day. But with respect to, as we discuss this, Lester, the idea is that there would probably be a HOA that would be created for maintaining the facilities. I'm wondering what happens if an HOA, they register with the state of Utah, but I don't know if there's anything that says they have to register. So if something happens to that HOA and they don't renew their status, what happens then with the maintenance? Any thoughts on that?
Okay, and that falls in line with the next item on the agenda with post-construction maintenance, or the post-construction ordinance, which requires a maintenance agreement to be recorded against the properties at the time of development. We get that document recorded by ordinance prior to the final plat. We've been extremely successful in actually having that document recorded earlier than that, just to prevent any hiccups at the final plat stage if that hasn't happened. Typically, that document records at the time they're issued a grading permit, which attaches it to the property far before the actual division of property occurs. So that ends up attached to each individual lot, and each individual lot has their fair share of responsibilities toward that maintenance.
So to take that a little further, then typically the developer is the HOA for a period of time after 75%, up to the time 75%, 50% of the lots are sold. So if the developer doesn't perform, what does that do, in getting everything in place? Maybe it'll already be in place, but I'm just wondering if there's an issue that might come up there with people who have bought a lot or build a home in a particular subdivision, and then they don't have the support of the developer. Is it all going to be completed by that time, I assume? The facilities, whatever they be?
Yes, the facilities will be constructed at initial construction of the subdivision, with the exception of if the choice is made and approved specifically by City Council according to the post-construction ordinance. If that decision is made that that's acceptable, it would fall on each individual lot if that were the case, but that's only in that circumstance. Credit to Councilman Coates, he brought that up with post-construction ordinance to put that into place so that is a specific approval that is given by council if that obligation is going to be placed upon each individual lot.
Okay. If I could, just a couple of other quick questions. Sorry.
You haven't caught up in the few months we've been working on this.
I read this big document that Mr. Dalton gave me there.
It's just light reading on the weekend.
Yeah. There's some discussion in the resolution, I believe it is, or the ordinance, about qualifications for someone who does the inspection, the post-construction inspection. What qualifications do we know? I didn't see anything in there that what tells us the qualifications that particular individual has to have. Does it need to be an engineer, or?
It needs to be somebody that has some sort of training associated with sediment controls, with best management practices, that kind of stuff. It can be an engineer. It can be somebody with various different certifications associated with the drainage environment. A couple of the new components that have come from the stormwater program would be a RSI certified inspector, which is a registered stormwater inspector. or an erosion control specialist that's been certified by UDOT. Them trainings are out there. They're readily available here locally. I believe they're doing up to 4 certification cycles per year. Anybody is welcome to go through the class, get the training, and become certified if they pass the test with a 70% score.
So we don't need to have anything in this document necessarily that addresses those qualifications.
No, that's covered in the state's construction general permit.
Okay.
So can I just jump in on that just to be clear? So it's sounding like if you were already an engineer, you wouldn't need that training? Or are you saying that that they would have to have that training that the state, am I hearing that right? State offers as well?
No, if you're already an engineer with obviously some background in a drainage environment, you would not need to have that training. That training's there and it's available. For example, if you have a homeowners association president that is tired of paying I believe on average they're charging about $100 a month. The registered stormwater inspectors that are out there that are doing this for homeowners associations. You know, if you didn't want to pay that fee anymore, you could actually go in there as a general citizen and take that test.
Great, thank you.
It's common in the professional services for someone who's licensed as an engineer, for example, to be qualified because of that licensing process, and they wouldn't typically step out of their realm of, you know, their experience and do something that they're not really qualified to do. Just one final thing, Mr. Dalton, item 7C, there's a date noted there of 2012. I wonder if that should be a different date year.
On item
7C.
7C within on the resolution itself.
Yeah, let me.
No, it's June 12th of 2020. That is the date on the cover of the document.
No, it was within the document. I apologize. I guess it just might be something to note. I'll try to tell you, determine where that is and let you know. But it appeared it had a date of 2012.
It could be the document that's Bowen and Collins had referenced.
I didn't get that, but that could be the case.
Yeah, it was a technical memorandum from Bowen Collins, and the document that they referenced for their work that they did on the disconnected impervious very well could have been a 2012 document that came out of the New Jersey Stormwater Management Plan.
Okay, probably not a major thing. When I run across that, I'll let you know where it is.
If you would, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm looking at that. So item 7C, annual report beginning September 1st, 2012, and September 1st of each year thereafter, the municipality shall include, and it goes on from there. Basically include the annual report of the state of Utah and the environmental quality.
So my thinking is that probably was intended to be 2021 or 2022, because that's when this whole process will be started.
Or is it possible that because this is an amendment to our existing ordinance and that wasn't changed, that's possible. That's maybe, Lester, do you know?
No, that's where specifically is it? Which
this is
document?
on page 9. It's on page 9.
I've got it on page 8.
Oh, on 8?
I'm in the final post-construction stormwater ordinance final updated 2020 PDF, page 8 of 11.
Unless you're looking at the red line, then it's the top of page 9.
That's what I'm looking at.
There you go.
Again, maybe not a major thing. It just might be something to look at and change that year if it's necessary.
But that's what I suspect, is that because the red lines are the revisions to the existing ordinance that
correct. That's correct. So that 2012 date is when the requirement came through for us to originally begin The annual reporting to the state was in 2012. So
Okay.
that requirement is still there.
So that's not a change with the LID.
That's correct.
Any additional comments or questions? What? You've been talking about this for 3 months.
I just want to say that I appreciate Lester reaching out to
Yeah.
each one of us and helping us explain. And Lester, I know that us council members can be difficult sometimes, but this is I can be. And I wanted to appreciate your thanks for working with us. I mean, I think this is a very important item that we needed to. I think with what we had to, since we are obligated to do it by the federal government, I think it's essential that we're protecting our private citizens' property rights as much as we possibly can. I think by doing what we've done in the ordinance and rewording it, it helps protect our private property owners. And it puts a lot of it on us as a council to remember this LID and explain all this every time this comes up. If the developer is presenting, hey, this is what we want to do with on-site detention on a private person's property. I think we need to remember that and remember private people's property rights and how we have, as a council, have to protect them if they choose to do that.
And Councilman Coates, I would concur with you, and I appreciate your leadership on this ordinance. I know you've spent a lot of time working on this and revising it. We all understand that there's no way around this, from the federal level down to the state level, down to the mandated municipal level. I think we're doing the best we can within the mandates, and we don't really have much of a choice here.
But I also want to keep, I appreciate that. And I want to move that. I don't want this to come off our radar either, as the fact that I think we need to talk to some of the higher ups and explain the concerns we have as a smaller city that this is implementing on our citizens. And they say it's no cost, but there's cost everywhere associated with it.
Absolutely.
And there's no funding for us as a city to manage it. And it's very concerning to me that they can keep doing that without any additional funds.
A small city with unique geography.
Yes, Councilman.
Yes.
I think that's the point. Is this is a blanket mandate from the federal EPA down to the state Department of Environmental Quality, but it's not specific to this desert topography and climate that we have, the soils that we have here. It's just, we're just basically appeasing it because it's rolling down to us. But definitely, in fact, I will personally be reaching out to some of our local reps on the state level and ask them to address this, because this is an unfunded mandate by a state agency.
I think that going forward, I would like to challenge the council, and I know that you'll already have thought of this, and that is the work begins once this is passed. We've got to be on the cutting edge of understanding it, being prepared to help our residents with questions as they come forward. But I will also be reaching out to the state legislators also, because in all reality, that's the only relief that we'll probably ever get from this, is being able to take back to them some of our experiences and maybe some of the misgivings that our citizens are having with it, and working through this to help them. And I do appreciate this about this council, and that is that the citizens are definitely the forefront of the decisions that are made, and the thought to try to make it this as least as negative as it can possibly be.
And we'll have a chance to see many of these. Appreciate Councilman Coates's insertion of that, so that some of these will come back to us, and we'll get a chance to get a sense of how burdensome this is for specific on specific items. So appreciate it.
If I could interject, one other thought is, it's been mentioned here that from past experience, there are those that do not understand why, I think it's $6.80 per month that every resident pays for maintenance of the stormwater now, and that can likely change as we go forward with this. One of the things that I noticed, Mr. Dalton, in the ordinance versus the resolution, the ordinance states that the federal and state government have established criteria and have mandated this, but in the resolution, there's mention of the state, but no mention of the federal mandate in that document. I guess my thought is that as much as we can put that forward, that it is not Washington City that is mandating that we do this. It is the state, federal government has been pointed out, that has mandated this, and we don't have a lot of choice.
And that's a little bit of clarification on that. The actual requirement of the retention scenario of the 80th percentile event, that is coming exclusively from the state level. The federal level has some additional options that we discovered as we were going through this document creation, that truthfully we don't necessarily want to go down that road. It would include sampling of stormwater discharges during rain events, sampling, testing, documenting what the discharges were, any contaminants that may be there, that kind of stuff. That gets even more burdensome than what the state has proposed with the 80th percentile retention requirement and the LID. The state is under the impression that that meets the federal requirements, and that is the option that they have presented to us via the permit.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking, I appreciate that clarification. That 80th percentile, excuse me, thinking traffic, but 80th percentile, even though it's a state formula, if you will, it's there because the federal has mandated that the state comes up with a process, procedures, and guidelines on this. So I'm thinking that's the case. I don't know that for certain.
That is the case.
Okay.
So Lester, would it hurt to put the state of Utah and the federal government on just whereas at the top of this resolution? Or just whereas the federal government, just like you did on the other one, whereas the federal government and the state of Utah Department of Environmental Quality has mandated?
There would probably need to be a little bit of additional verbiage put in there to stipulate that the federal has stipulated this would be an acceptable scenario to meet their requirements. I'm not 100% certain what all options that the feds left out there for the states to meet the requirements.
Yeah, my only thought is just to make it as transparent as possible and understood as much as possible by the citizens of Washington that, hey, this is not something Washington City has come up with and that you're paying for.
But again, I kind of take Lester's point that this particular reference is the state of Utah's interpretation and pushing it down onto us. So.
You know, that's another good point is, again, when you look at the actual ordinance versus the resolution, the federal government established criteria for control of, you know, the first whereas federal was already there. And so now we're adding the state because this is their mandate on top of what the federal mandate already was. But I didn't catch that, Councilman, until you brought it up that way. But I think that's why the resolution specifies the state. Now the state requirements insert themselves into our ordinance with this, with this change.
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I think it could be easily changed to make sure that to at least reference the federal, if one wanted to, because that first whereas in the resolution could read something like, whereas because of criteria established by the federal government, the state of Utah has mandated that. I mean, we just make reference to it because, let's face it, it is because of the initial criteria that the state then had the options later on, but it at least links it without really saying much.
Council Starkey, so you're saying that, for example, on the resolution, this first whereas, you would say something like, whereas the Federal Environmental Protection Agency has mandated that the state of Utah Department of Environmental blah, blah, blah.
I'd make it even
just
simpler.
insert that because that's where it initiated, was on the federal level.
Yeah, I did even simpler than that. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm on. I would put just real simple because that's really what we want to make sure is that anybody who happens to just read our resolution understands there's at least a connection there. It could simply read, whereas because the federal government has established criteria for the control of pollutants, the state of Utah Department of Environmental Quality has mandated. It seems like it does it easily without really saying much, but it still makes the connection that we had in our ordinance.
Would it need to be just in that first whereas or the second one as well?
I think, well, if I'm understanding what the comments were, it was really wanting to make sure that anybody that is reading this to try to get a grasp of what's going on still sees the connection. Oh, this is federal government mandates down to the state. The city had to do it, because that makes that connection, because that's really what we're saying. And that's really what we're all what we're really all put off by, this seemingly taxation without representation being mandated through. But simply by saying, because the federal government, because the federal government has established criteria for the control of pollutants, boom, the state of Utah Department of Environmental Quality has. I think that makes a tie, but it's up to you guys. I agree with the fact that it's nice to keep that consistent, making sure that citizens, developers, they see that there's a chain always in this thing.
Certainly adding that doesn't seem like that it doesn't change the intent there or you know, it's just stating that fact. And I'm not hung up with it either way, but I just, you know, it could stay the way it is, but anything we can do, because I've had the experience of people asking me, and it sounds like some of you already have, you know, what is this all about? And hey, there it is right there. You were mandated. But
I think we could easily add that verbiage that the Council Starkey has brought up to this prior to signature. I mean, we ought to just make that a part of the motion if you guys are moving to approve.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve item 6A, resolution of adopting low impact development application guidance with the resolution, with the condition that we adjust the verbiage in the first paragraph to include the federal government.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mayor, just before we do that, by way of discussion on there, if I could just insert, appreciate Lester's patience with which he shared the burden of this. And I recognize this has been a burden for Lester and his department. And I also appreciate staff's insertion of the red line documentation as we're doing legislation. It's extremely helpful to see what's been added and what's been taken out. That just really helps us kind of all stay on the same page. And I appreciate that. Love to see that in any instance we have that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Ward. Okay, we'll continue with the roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
All right, that's approved. And we'll move on to item 7, ordinance A, continuation to consider approving an ordinance amending the Washington City Code by replacing Chapter 7, post-construction stormwater management of Title 8, building codes and construction regulations in order to comply with the current federal state requirements. Assistant Public Works Director Lester Dalton.
This is the second item associated with the previous item on the low impact development. This is basically the insertion of the low impact development requirements into our existing post-construction ordinance that we have in place. This will be one more component that we've got to look at on that 5-year basis and expect a inspection to be done on a yearly basis by the HOA or the individuals on whatever facilities they have in place on their particular development or parcel.
So Mayor, if there's no discussion on this item, I'll make a reluctant motion to amend the Washington City Code for replacing Chapter 7 post-construction stormwater management of Title 8 Building Code and Construction Regulations in order to comply with the current federal and state requirements with the red lines that were presented to us in our packet.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
So I'll reluctantly second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Again, we'll go with a roll call vote. Start with
Coates,
Councilman-
aye.
Bundy, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward reluctantly, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. That is approved. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a good process. Item B,
Thank you, Mayor.
consideration. Lester, you have a comment?
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lester.
Thanks, Lester.
We'll move on to item B, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zoning change request Z-20-13, request from the multiple family residential R3 to service commercial C2, located at the northeast corner of 300 East Telegraph Street, applicant Brandon and Teresa Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2-week holdover is now completed for this item. It's ready for your action. And I'll be glad to answer any questions the council might have had during their 2 weeks of deep thought on this zone change.
My question would be for Mr. Shaw, if he's had any conversations with the applicants on the property or any of his staff.
I don't think we have.
Well, so
I have,
go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, I'm not sure who Mr. Shaw is. I don't think we've had anybody speak with us. This is Teresa Woods.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it was my understanding that there was still some things that were being worked on as far as
Stacking distance.
the stacking and the distances. And I think that staff was actually withholding or recommending this to council until that was figured out, if my recollection was correct.
No, the conversation went, Councilman, that as the conditional use permit process moved forward, if they couldn't get things worked out with the traffic engineer, that they would then recommend denial of the CUP on the project, is what the discussion was.
Okay.
But they're requesting a C2 zone.
But Drew, they need the conditional use permit because this is on Telegraph Street. Is that correct? Because
Correct.
a restaurant would be a permitted use. Why are they asking for a C2 zone rather than a C1 zone? Because a restaurant is a permitted use there. Is there any reason they would need a C2 or would be a C1 zoning? Is that sufficient?
Teresa, why don't you go ahead and answer that? We know you're there, so.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting us on your docket. We were requesting the C2. We just want to be safe, make sure that we have what we need for our business. And if for some reason our CUP doesn't go through, then it's already zoned for whatever's in line with you, with your decisions.
So a C2 zoning allows for everything you can do in an AP, administrative professional, or a C1 zone plus just a few others. And we could read through them, but Drew, do you see any reason why they couldn't do a little cafe, drink shop, or drink restaurant with a C1 zoning?
I don't see any issue. In fact, I'll be more than glad just to read you the one line, I think, in a C1 that covers what the applicant or anybody else might have concerns. But here's the last of the permitted uses in a C1. This is what it states: retail sale and or rental of goods, merchandise, and equipment conducted wholly within an enclosed building. I think that answers and that covers just about almost anything you can think of. When it
They could
says
have the cafe, if they had, let's say they had a drive-through or even just a little bit of inside or patio seating, they would be fine with that in a C1.
Yeah, because it states restaurants as one of, I mean, it stands on its own, and I would say, it would fall under the restaurant.
But it did say that you have to be seated inside only. Did I hear you say that?
No, I don't see that anywhere in my zoning.
So is there a concern you have, Councilman Staley, with the C2 versus the C1? I'm just trying to understand your...
I'm just, obviously you can do more and bigger. I'm thinking that they've indicated with the letter in our packet from their engineer that they want to do hot and cold drinks here, which I think is a great use for this. If they can get the traffic access done correctly, and if they can meet the stacking requirements and they're willing to abide by any conditions as part of that conditional use permit. My only concern would be that if we approve a C2 when they could do this with a C1, that falls through. What could potentially come in as a C2 that we couldn't do with a C1? So if we can accomplish it with a little bit tighter zoning, I would rather do that.
Well, and on that point, I kind of wonder if it makes sense to go to the PD commercial.
What I like about
I
was originally thinking this, Councilman, but what I like about straight zoning in this case, because I'm not opposed to the PUD zoning and the ability to see the site plan and to work with the applicant. What I like about this is my biggest concern is the access and the stacking. And I think with a conditional use permit, even though that just goes to the Plan Commission, I think in this particular case, that could be a condition for the zoning, which then gives us some regulation to say, if we see traffic backing onto 300 East, we can revoke that unless you can resolve it. So to me, because that's my biggest concern on this piece is an access. I love the idea of this little restaurant there.
And I do too. And I think that we need to remember that they're just asking for a zone change tonight. And as those things come forward, I'm confident that the details can be worked out. I was actually excited to see something being done on that corner. And I think that we just need to remember that we're working on zone change tonight. And if they can do it in a C2, then great. If it's C1, I'm confident that we can bring this forward and we can find the resolution to make this happen. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
I want to council not to put too much weight on the conditional use. You really don't have much leverage with the conditional use in there, as long as they can show that they have made efforts to mitigate that. You almost are kind of baked in that you have to give that over to them. So I would be much more in line, especially where this is it's on Telegraph, it fronts our city, it's in our historic district. Businesses like this I'm really excited about it. I think it's great, but they don't have a great longevity, and there's a high probability that it might turn over. I would be I'd like to hear the applicant respond to Councilman Coates' suggestion of turning this into a commercial.
And can we also hear maybe staff's response? Because I'm intrigued by both sides of this conversation on the appropriateness of it.
I just want to say, no matter what commercial piece is here, I'm concerned about the traffic because it is a small piece and it is a busy intersection already that we have. And so I appreciate that they offered that they're going to a drink shop. That just makes it even more on my radar of, hey, we got an access issue in general with this small of a parcel right off that busy intersection. So any commercial there I'm concerned about. Yeah. And that's why I'm favoring the PUD or PD commercial so that we can evaluate it. So that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear from the applicant.
Then you've got it back at you because it's really only a PUD commercial and you're going to do it again. So I agree.
Could I just make it very clear, and this probably goes without saying, to the applicant, you do understand the concern about the traffic, the stacking, and so forth. You are aware that could be a problem if this were approved. Mrs. Wood?
I do, and if you don't mind me just talking for just a minute, we've gone over this quite extensively with our architect and with the engineers, and have made sure that, we had like I want to say 20 stacking. I think we did it with the full-size Ford trucks. If we had 7 full-size Ford trucks, 10 mid-sized cars, that would fit all on our lot. 17. We've taken our building down to about 650 square feet to be able to have that many in line. There's not another drink shop here or in St. George or in Orem or anywhere that has the capability for 17 stacking all on the lot. My husband and I also we know that could be an issue with any business, of course, and safety, of course, is our priority. And so our plan was to post signs also saying that you're not allowed to, be on the road at all. And if the drive-through is full, please pull to the parking lot for curbside service. Then people know that because we have parking, Reed, what do we have, 14 parking stalls?
We lost a couple. We lost a couple, and we moved the building around a little bit, but we still have, I think, 3 or 4 extras.
Okay. So anyway, so we can do the curbside service as well. And so if we have those signs posted, we've already taken the way you can't get in off of Telegraph. I had spoken with Drew about that, of trying to keep that at the east end, but we took that out for safety as well. And then we're putting in another power pole so that we can move those power cords and move our driveway to the north as far as it will go as well. So we've tried to make sure that we're in line with everything. Of course, I know that if we have to, we can put in a right turn only out of there if we have to. I'm okay with that as well, so that nobody is pulling out into that turning lane. Because I did notice that turning lane is the straight and turn, so you wouldn't want that to. So I'm okay with that as well. The reason that we wanted to be able to do the C2.
Can I just get staff for the right in? Because the right in, right out was my understanding that was a given, that was kind of a done deal. Is that right?
Yes.
So just in this circumstance, because not all of the solutions are actually going to be contained on the property, the right in, right out effectively, if you'll think about that, forces traffic to run up into a residential neighborhood. They will have to go into a residential neighborhood, and we're essentially encouraging people to do a U-turn or to flow out of a commercial property into a residential neighborhood.
Councilman Ward, when I was in Cedar last week, there's a drink shop up there that has signs posted much like the situation we're talking about. And I actually pulled over and watched for a while just to see. And the signs, it was interesting because the signs were posted. And for the most part, it ran smoothly. But it was obvious that in that business up there, that their council in Cedar must have had the same interest. But overall, it ran smoothly. And I was going to stop and visit with the owners and get some more perspective, but had to get to the game. So,
and I appreciate the posting of signs on the property. But again, I have to be realistic with that because it's been my experience that the easiest way to get people to ignore something is to put it onto a sign.
Mm-hmm. And if I can also ask you about the C2 versus the C1, my husband and I have been business owners for about 30 years. I'd like to apply for the C2. I think, isn't that what Domino's has? That's right there next to us. Is C2.
Yes, I'll answer that. Yes, Domino's has C2, but I believe Bishop's has C1, which is just to your east.
St. Helens.
I'm going to direct you back to my question, but prior, and maybe just have you respond to if you would be willing to have this be a PUD commercial. And if you don't know what that is, I'm sure we could help you have a better understanding of that. And specifically because of the traffic, it gives us the ability to not give it straight zoning, traffic as well as in our historic area.
So if you do a PUD or whatever it is called, then you don't get the C2 zoning.
You would get your drink shop, But you wouldn't get straight zoning. You would submit your plans, present them to the city council. The city council would have the ability to work with you a little bit on design and layout. If you sold the property, it would still stay, the zoning would still stay as a PUD commercial, but the next occupant would need to again come back to the city council, submit plans and designs, and it gives a little bit more of a cooperative venture with the city council because of some of the extenuating circumstances, like I mentioned, traffic and historic district.
So hang on, sorry. Okay, so it just concerns me. I really would like to go for the C2 on that property. You know, if it's something that doesn't pass the conditional use permit, then maybe I open a floral or something, but I would like it to be, you know, done to where it's C2. And because no matter what, it's on Telegraph. And so whoever goes in there has to do conditional use permit. Is that correct, Drew?
It does, but I'm gonna help you with the upside of a PUD commercial, because of the if the applicant is willing to submit for a PUD commercial, the council may be more willing to grant that, especially in a case where they may be willing to turn it down, a straight zoning of a C2.
So are you telling me that you're going to turn down it as a C2?
Well, currently I'm in the process of encouraging you to respond to a PUD commercial.
I know, but is that a fair question for me to ask?
It's fair. It's also fair of me to do what I just did and kind of dodge it. But
I know. I felt that. But
I personally have enough concerns about this that I don't know that I would be able to vote for a C2, because even if I was okay with a drink shop there, I put straight zoning in an area that has already problems and concerns. If you leave and sell it to somebody else, I don't have any control beyond the ordinances that are there. This really helps the council to feel like we're not creating a problem that we can't continue to address, or some future council couldn't continue to address.
I have a lot of faith in Drew and Brandon and Public Works and all of them, and I've been really working with them before I even brought this to the city council. And I don't know, I want it to be able to be zone C2. I'm willing to do whatever we need to do for, you know, our stacking. Of course, if I have to have more people working, I'm going to have people out there with iPads and stuff. You've seen that at SWIG and others as well. And so where you can stack 17 on there plus my parking, and then I have the signs, and then I have people that are out there taking care of the customers. And if there is a stacking issue at all, they'll redirect them and tell them no, that they can't stay on the, you know. So I mean, I know that you don't know us, so it makes it a little bit difficult to make the decisions, but we owned a New View Auto Glass in Vernal and Roosevelt for 14 years. We owned an addiction recovery center as well. And I know what it takes to be a part of this city. And I know that it's a big responsibility, which I'm willing to take on. However, if for some reason my conditional use permit gets shot down or something, we put our entire savings into doing this, or, you know, and so if for some reason it got shot down, I'd like to be able to put it up for sale and at least recoup without having to, you know, ask for permission again, or, you know, it would sway buyers away from us if they have to go through the whole process again. I was a real estate agent as well for RE/MAX, and so I know that it creates more work and more headache, and buyers sometimes walk away from that as well. I'm not planning on selling it, but I also have to protect our assets. I hope you understand that, and this is exactly where Drew and Brandon and Matt Lou, they all come in, and I've met with them in person. I've showed them our plans for working, of course, I said with the engineers and architects, it's going to be beautiful. I love the historic downtown, and I want to make sure that we're a great part of that. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that, you know, it's a great experience for everybody, for the city, for the customers, for employees, you know, all around. But I would like to ask for it to be C2 so that there's a little bit less hassle.
Mrs. Woods, let me take you off the hook here for a little bit and place the burden on the staff here. I know that Councilman Crest Daly had asked for a response from staff as well on the PUD commercial.
Hey, I appreciate that time. I was going to try to jump in. Now, I will, if it helps with everybody's thought, please keep this in mind. If it goes PUD, or that might be an option, you approve it, the parking kind of fails, doesn't matter. You approved it as a PUD, you're done. If I come back and do a C1 or C2 with a conditional use permit, and the applicant knows that this is a traffic area, and we put a condition on that if there are public health concerns there because of traffic, and we put that as part of their CUP, and it fails, you can revoke that CUP if they can't mitigate it out. That's the beauty of the CUP in this case, Councilman, is that let me finish. Let me just, because I don't want to lose the train of thought.
On that same thought though, because so help me understand why the conditional use goes away if the CUP is used. I'm sorry.
You just double talk there.
I understand why the conditional use permit goes away if it is PUD commercial thing.
Because you approved that zoning as the design.
But the area requires a CUP.
If it's C2.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so the PUD, you won't be able to do that. You're gonna state that you accept their landscaping, you accept their elevations, you accept their parking, you accept their building and their use. And then if the parking fails, you zoned it already. But in my conditional use permit, those can be revoked because they have conditions of approval. And if you can't meet them, you agree to them and you can't meet them, then you can revoke that. You have that little bit of leverage on
that's where we come full circle. Because when we talked about that initial question, that's why initially I was thinking PUD, but I think we control traffic better with the conditional use permit or CUP. That's the only reason why I would tend to lean straight zoning in this particular case.
So Drew, this is Councilman Ivy. I noticed that you reserved your approval, just saying that the only concern with the proposed zone change is being able to meet access management requirements. In consideration of a CUP and what you've said, are we correct in assuming that you would recommend approval with a CUP?
Yeah, in this case, I'd probably rather go straight zoning with the CUP, and part of those conditions of approval would be that if we come up with a problem and they cannot mitigate it, then they would not be meeting the conditions of that CUP.
How we
not have stacking problems on this street right here.
But we'd have to identify those potential problems before we approve the CUP. Correct? We can't just say, well, you got a problem later on and then revoke it. If we don't infringe what that problem is, then how can we do that?
Well, we've already stated that in our previous meeting, if you folks remember that. Mike sat there and said that we won't recommend approval on the CUP unless their traffic engineers show sufficient evidence that it can meet it. That's already been stated, and that would continue to carry through.
The problem I have is a traffic engineer can say it meets for a C2 zoning. We're talking about a specific use that has a potential traffic problem way different than we've seen in the past. We're in a different demographic now. Everyone's doing drive-throughs. The drive-throughs are longer, and they're not built big enough for the drive-through situation we have. I have that concern, and I have the concern of the fact that it's sitting on Telegraph, our main street in town, and we have no control of any of the historical look that goes along our roadway. Those are my two concerns with the straight zoning.
Well, you do have control over that. You have a planning commission that approves that conditional use permit based on they have to provide elevations, site plan, landscaping, etc.
So Council Starkey, is there any legislative action that we could take to make a PUD commercial work in this and still have still have future teeth that would like a conditional use permit for a traffic issue?
So let me just give you my general response to this enigma that's wrapped in a riddle that we have PUD commercial and conditional use permits that go with commercial zoning. They're all problematic to some extent, and for all the reasons you pointed out, all councils pointed out, Madrew's pointed out also. The difference with the PUD, if you come in with the PUD commercial, is that in effect, they're applying for their CUP. Again, in effect, they're applying for their CUP at the same time they're applying for their zone, because it's all wrapped in, it becomes the new zone. Whatever the criteria are for the approval of that PUD commercial then becomes the zoning and the zoning regulations for it. So you would want to have everything you would have probably wanted to have in a conditional use permit, because you would have the same safety concerns, the same.
So I'm hearing you say that you could do that in a CUP, but you would have to specify specify as if it was a conditional use permit that they had to keep traffic off the road. It could be one of those things.
Yeah, and I don't know what we have in our commercial PUD that would prevent that. We certainly discuss those things in a residential PUD when they come in. We discussed all aspects of it, of a project that are amplified by now having business on it. So it seems to me that that's the only place you could address handling traffic, handling the residue of business that goes on in a project like this. And so, I mean, it actually wraps into one thing. If I'm the owner of that land, maybe I want to know right off the bat. I'll just come in with a PUD commercial. I'll know whether I don't have to take a risk that I'm getting a zone change, and I may not get that conditional use permit, because no matter what you guys say tonight, or no matter what anybody on staff has ever said, if an applicant gets their zone, we do not agree ahead of time that they're going to get that conditional use permit, because we can't do that by land use law. It still has to be separately discussed at a public meeting. So you can wrap that all into one to see if the use I want for my property in a commercial area, and I know what exactly is going to be required of me to have it approved for commercial, and here they all are, and I can live with all of these things. If they fail to live up to the standards you placed on them, just like in a conditional use permit, I don't understand why we can't go in and enforce it, just like we did for anyone else that failed to live by the regulations going with a particular zone in which they just had straight zoning.
Okay, so Council Starkey, so talk to me just really briefly about the failure of both. So let's say we go straight C2 zoning, and we have a conditional use permit on it. We start stacking on the road. How does the city proceed to revoke that conditional use permit?
The one thing I'll say is that the state legislature and national legislation has failed to ever really take care of this issue, and it's always problematic, difficult for both parties when it ever comes up. Because reality is, you said it exactly correctly. If it's zoned correctly, if you have a zone for it that you're eligible to maybe get a conditional use permit for, the best you can do as a legislative body approving a CUP is point out the problematic areas. If the applicant addresses those, mitigates those to an extent, you have to give them that conditional use permit if it's a zone. If now they violate some provision there, I don't care if it's stacking, I don't care if they sold, products to minors, whatever it was that they've done that they violated, they failed to put their sprinkling system in. We've had that before, where they failed to put their landscape sprinkling in. We've attempted to have their conditional use permit revoked, and you have to go through an entire process to do that as a city council to do it. So you have to prove that they failed to reach a criteria. But you're right. I think in this particular case, it would be unfair for either the city or the property owner if it wasn't really, really clear what meant violating that provision.
So then if I'm not mistaken where I'm hearing you say this though, you are suggesting that there would be a way to grant this a PUD commercial and to put specific restrictions on that at the time you zoned it as a PUD commercial with regards to stacking and traffic, correct?
As I understand why we drafted PUDs for zoning, that's exactly why.
So then talk to me about the revocation of that if the location could not stay in stacking compliance and
that becomes more problematic, because let me tell you, there's never been a case on that yet. We're already cutting edge having a PUD commercial.
So neither of those tools are either any good for us. So it would, in my opinion, it would behoove us to be as careful with the straight zoning as possible. Talk to the applicant at this time, have them cooperate with us with the design. And then if we have to deal with somebody else or some other council has to deal with somebody else, then they deal with them as a CUP commercial.
Yeah, my feeling
I've never thought you had any real teeth in the conditional use permits.
It is difficult. It just is difficult to revoke those. And Drew will confirm that. We haven't done it very many times, but they've complied once we've started the process. But it's don't kid yourself that it's not like going out and issuing a ticket and it's all taken care of. It's problematic for everybody. If you're going to rent property, get good renters in. You don't ever have to evict them.
Yeah.
Now here's where I'd like to interject, because we're on this point that I tried to make, is at least I have legislative tracking with the CUP, an opportunity to revoke. I cannot revoke a zoning. I can't go back and revoke. That's why I say when you pass that PUD commercial, you passed it. You don't have anything in the laws that allow you to revoke that. But a CUP, the law has granted you the opportunity. It may be hard, but at least you have an avenue in that vein, other than you don't in the other one.
So we're kind of around. So Council Starkey, there's no way, just to address this specifically, there's no way to attach a CUP to a PUD commercial.
No.
To attach it? Yeah, that's not our process. I mean, our PUD commercial is what it is. It's been developed so you could treat it as if you're just winding the two together at one time, but they are still different laws. The CUP, Drew's right, and that's why I said the enforcement, if it's a PUD commercial, the enforcement, if they're violating it, we're already cutting edge with the PUD commercial. We haven't gotten to the point where you might have to enforce it or withdraw something, and Drew's right, that's so much more problematic.
Council Starkey, this is Councilman Staley. So the way I understand it, and you and Mr. Elliman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand a CUP, conditional use permit, as just that, as you have the permit to operate this business within the zoning, as long as you meet the conditions of that permit. So as Drew says, there's recourse on that. Whereas a PUD is, I look at that more like custom zoning, but I don't know how I go back and correct a zoning issue when I don't have conditions like I do on a conditional use permit. That's the only reason why I like the idea of commercial there. I share concerns with traffic, but I think as I look at both of these and I try to say which is the better tool to use in this case, I still lean a little bit towards straight zoning with a conditional use permit. Now, Drew, how involved would staff be in construction drawings and site plan and design? Because the general plan for this is historic downtown commercial. I mean, how involved would you be? How involved could the council be before a CUP came back before the Plan Commission?
Well, basically, if the zoning passed tonight C2, they can make application. Like I say, and you guys get copies of those packets to the Planning Commission. I think every week anyway. You'll have that kind of input. And again, there's always, if they pass something you're not real happy with, there's the you can, why am I drawing a blank right here? But
They can appeal the decision.
appeal. Yeah, you have the right to appeal that.
Your own
Say,
planning
hey,
commission.
But the only thing we could appeal on would be the CUP, not necessarily the historic design or the way it fits in with the community. Once it's
well, you're not worried about that historic design.
But I'm saying that's once you zone it C2, you don't have any input on the design, which was Staley's comment.
Could I interject? Please. So I love your concerns, and I don't know if any of you got the email that I had sent over to Drew, but that is my style. I love historic. It is more of a historic looking farmhouse. It's a modern farmhouse with shiplap and fans on the porch, and it's beautiful. And I attached pictures of that so that it could be brought before all of you, City Council. I'm not sure if you received that or not, but we do things right. I want you to know that about us. We do things right. I'll bring you the pictures from the architect. You're welcome to see those, but I definitely will make sure that we stay in line with that in this CUP and being in line with the historic. I don't know if Brandon or Matt Lou, do they have any part in these conversations? Because they've also seen our plans, and they said it was exactly right in with the historic downtown feel and vibe.
Yeah,
so you could speak to them as well.
Yeah, if I could make a general comment here. I listened to this discussion 2 weeks ago, and as it's been stated, traffic is an issue without question. Telegraph is a major street. Telegraph is going to only get busier. We know that. Not only that, 300 East is quite a busy street. And I don't want to rehash the details, but just two points. One is that, this is a classic. Do we approve a business or a change in a zone here that's going to have a business that's going to adversely impact the rest of the community, or at least that area of the community, i.e. the school, the traffic, so on? I think that's the real question here. One use versus the negative to the traveling public, the people that use that area, the kids walking to school across the crosswalk. Yes, it is on the other side, but it will have an impact. For example, the right turn in off from 300 East, I don't think anyone, and I think this is the issue everyone has talked about. There may be stacking on site, but that right turn in, none of us have to be a traffic engineer to realize that cars trying to make a right turn in is such a tight site. Traffic is going to be backed up into that intersection. There is no question in my mind about that. All we have to do is look around. Traffic light there. People are going to be trying to turn in. People are trying to come out, make a right. It's just going to be congested right there, and it's going to inhibit traffic, and it's going to be a problem. That's just my overview. So I guess it's a little bit along the line of what Councilman Coates is indicating. Telegraph is a busy street. I think that the idea and the design that we're seeing for that corner is great. It could fit right in with the historic, but it's the traffic and the congestion of that busy corner, and just such a small site that you have no room to get off the street quickly. And if it's that busy, that's going to be a problem.
See, and following on that, my concern is that even if the slowdown in traffic, does it impede the traffic heading north, that all of a sudden our lights is just causing us, I don't know. I really am just hesitant. I'm favoring not the conditional use. I'm favoring the PD commercial, but that's just me.
Well, so Councilman Bundy's comment, you're really almost in a position where is this even a good place to put that business, granting any zoning? Because it would be, no matter what you do with your zoning, this will be a tough deal to get the traffic figured out.
It will be, my view.
And I kind of want the dang thing there.
I like the business, but maybe does it make sense to put a right turn lane there so that
that's
it's
just
not
what I was
impeding
asking.
traffic?
Would a right turn lane on 300 make sense?
Widen that whole corner out so that you can actually get people to turn right and stay in right, and it doesn't impede traffic north and south.
I'd love to hear staff respond to that.
I think the challenge is it's so small.
Yeah.
That you take that,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're affecting the building, the parking, the routing traffic through there. That's a detail that I think that might be difficult, but it certainly would help. But we know that's such a short distance from that corner to that entry on 300 East. It's going to be a problem.
Drew, are you still there?
I'm always here.
Okay, you and I had talked on the phone in the very beginning about trying to keep that entrance exit that's on Telegraph and just put it clear at the east end. That would help you with the people that are coming westbound. Is that right? Westbound on Telegraph. It would also help people if they had to, get out onto Telegraph. So, I think it would be probably smart to do that. I think that would help the situation, and that could be a right out only as well, but it might ease it as well. And then in the future, we possibly want to try to buy the next door neighbor's house eventually, if it's a possibility. So we would have even more parking lots. So we are thinking ahead. But like I said, I really wish, I hope that we can just own it.
I thought we addressed in our last meeting that we don't have the road. Maybe Mike can help me remember. I didn't think that this would be acceptable to the roads department.
So an entrance off Telegraph is definitely out. That would just create huge problems. I know we've looked at this quite a bit in-house. Our city engineer, he's even a transportation certified engineer. We've looked at this quite extensively, which normally we wouldn't at a zone change issue. Normally this would come in at a CUP, and at the CUP is when we would put all of our conditions on it, that if they couldn't meet it, then we would not be in favor of it. And then they have to come back to council if they agree with our decision. We looked at putting a turn pocket in on 300 East. It's so close to the intersection, but we could possibly fit in enough for one car to slide in there to make that right-hand turning movement. We've also talked about putting an island down 300 East so they could not make a left-hand turning movement. Other options are putting a pork chop in their entrance to where they could not make a left-hand turning movement. Because from day one, one of the council members said that they're going to try to do the easiest thing possible, and putting signs in just doesn't usually work that well. So we're looking at options, just restricting that to a right in, right out, and making it impossible to make that left-hand turning movement.
So, Mr. Shaw, would you recommend going straight zoning with the CUP?
I really don't have a recommendation. It just, with the CUP, as far as my department goes, we have a lot more teeth and we work with them a lot closer on it, where with a PUD or PCD, they would come into council and work it through with council, not as much as staff.
Well, I'd hope that staff would be involved through that process with us, because we need your guidance as well.
But it's a little tougher for us to be involved when it's at a council meeting and not one-on-one meetings with the developer of the site.
Gotcha.
I see that on the straight zoning with the CUP, staff is probably more involved on the front end, but also can be a little more involved in holding the business to the conditions, whereas with the PUD, the council would be a little more involved in the design initially, but maybe not have as much ability to go back if there are issues that aren't being, like traffic issues or stacking issues.
Like Drew addressed earlier on the CUP, we don't normally get too far down the road. Usually all we have to do is make the threat that we're going to revoke their CUP, and they take care of issues right away, especially on my end where it's usually always a transportation issue.
one thing that was helpful for me tonight, and I recognize that we're just at a zoning phase here, but the applicant did share, basically an idea of what the building would look like, what the traffic flow and the parking would look like. And I mean, if I were to sit down with the applicant or as part of this council and hear what the applicant had to say and show us for the design, I actually really like the design. I think it fits a nice historic commercial design. Honestly, if it makes sense, I'm not going to be really hard on a PUD versus straight zoning. I would like to see something go there. To me, it's still going to matter whatever avenue, whatever vehicle we choose. It's going to matter. The biggest thing to me is going to be the traffic, and can we make the traffic work?
So she brought up the possibility of purchasing that other lot that got a star on it. What is Mike? What does that do for you? Would you, if it was that far away from the intersection, would you allow access from Telegraph to a business?
Possibly on that. We're getting far enough away from the signal that we could probably allow something to come in that direction.
That would be a right in and a
right in, right out only.
And then you would have a second right in, right out at the northwest corner, I guess.
Correct.
Or that only, I guess. Would you?
It might hurt the stacking. We haven't seen their layout, but putting one there, it might
actually hurt their stacking.
It might hurt their stacking. So they got to look at elongating their parking lot or drive-through to accommodate stacking.
Yeah, they're internal stacking.
Yeah, internal stacking, correct. No stacking on Telegraph for 300. I agree with you, Councilman Staley. Traffic is my biggest concern. I think it needs to be commercial one way or the other, but I'm just super concerned, and I don't know. I kind of feel like if we do it right, then we're not going to have an issue.
So Drew, this is Councilman Ivy. We'll circle back and put you on the spot again. A lot's been said. I think it's understood that the council has concern about traffic, but I'm just wondering again what your direction is. What do you see? You do this all the time. Is there a way to do this and make it work within that? I know that a lot of projects that I've built over the years, there's always details that you have to work out, and there's ways to do it. Is that what you're thinking, or is it something that we need to give? I've appreciated the applicant and understanding this is a major investment for their family, and there's a lot weighing on this. And so I think that we need to allow our staff to do what they're trained and what they're excellent at, and that is to work out the details and then bring it back and let us see if that's going to work or not. But anyway, Drew, if you could.
Well, if I had a crystal ball, then I would, because I look at, I just threw this red on, as you could see. If they just had a right in, but it sounds like Mike doesn't want that at all. But if it was right in only, you could see where you could pick up my red here. Then they could blend in with the orange. Then everybody goes out. That would give you tons of stacking. That would take the fear I have, and we've all seen it. When SWIG came in over by Dixie State University on 1000 East, you all know the spot, and the nightmares that have happened there. So that's my fear. Always have to look at worst case scenario. The fear would be that scenario of that first SWIG in St. George. Now, if I could take that away, I'm probably fine with the orange circulation. But man, and the thing is, you could actually double the lanes, especially because she said she's going to have, the people out with the pads. So you could actually have two lanes exiting out, at least for a little bit, and then they just all kind of go like McDonald's, one side in and to go out. Picks you up a little bit more, but you'd have to have staff that would run the drinks out to the people. But those are things to mitigate out, and that's why I like the CUP more, because I do have, again, that option of the revocation if they cannot mitigate it out. So there's things they could do to help do that if we run into those problems. But can I promise we won't ever not have it? I wouldn't dare do that, because if they get so good and so popular, I don't care what you've done. You could have had the whole block face, and you know how people go crazy about certain things, and then you're still in a bind. For what it's worth.
All I want to comment, Drew, is I appreciate that, but on that drink shop you talked about, they had shoulder. We have no shoulder here. Our intersection's already too small on 300 East, and so I'm just concerned.
No, I didn't use it as a good example. Please don't take that. That was my bad example and my fear.
A bad example, but the bad example had place to go.
Well, they had bigger lot. Yeah, they could, because they had people that could, you know, they could do all kinds of stuff because the lot was massive with one dinky little building on it. That is true.
So Drew, addressing the fact that there's a third possible property there that would be acquired, how would that change the overall look to you if you had that third piece of property?
Well, you went that third project, you could add 10 to 12 more cars in the whole circulation, easy. And so if she says her engineer already came up with, what was it, 18 to 20, you could end up with 28 to 30. That's not a bad scenario.
So does that mitigate your concern?
A whole lot of it, yes.
If I could just be a little more specific on my thoughts on that right turn off 300 East. It doesn't matter how much stacking there is on the site. It's such a short distance that someone just slowing down to make a turn is going to inhibit traffic through the whole intersection. It's just that simple. So just wanted, the stacking on site's fine, but getting from the street to on site is a problem in my view. I may sound a little abrupt here, but I do appreciate it. Again, it looks to me like it would fit right in with the historic somewhat. It's a good business. I'm not opposed to business. I just think we have to look at reality that this is such a small parcel with no elbow room for doing the right thing. That's just my view as far as traffic is concerned, specifically traffic. A larger parcel would afford a lot of other options and possibilities. So,
could I say something by chance? We have spent several days there watching traffic, and 3rd East has hardly any traffic. The bulk of the traffic is telegraphed east and west, and Washington Fields coming and turning east or west on Telegraph. We were tallying how many cars would come on 300, and it was very, very low. We did the weekdays from 7 until 9 and 4 until 6. And on that 3rd East portion of that intersection, we did it every 15 minutes, and there would be 1 to 3 cars. The highest that it got was 14 cars. And so it was a stark difference from Telegraph East and West, Washington Fields up to Telegraph East and West. 3rd East was quite slow. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that it isn't the crazy busy like Telegraph and Washington Fields. It ends there at that.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate those numbers, but that's today. For businesses put in there that generates a lot of traffic, that's going to be different. It doesn't take but just 1 or 2 vehicles that's going to make a difference there. We know that Telegraph is going to increase in traffic significantly over what we see, and it doesn't take. But there's no room for a turn off from 300, in my view. Again.
Okay, so if we were able to do a C2 with a CUP, and we couldn't, the intersection became too busy, the stacking was a problem, and we're in agreement. We don't want that to happen. If we have to have our conditional use permit taken, that so be it. Then we turn to just a little cafe or something. But we can address that as we can get to it. If we can just get it zoned and get the CUP in the process, and, because they've already been very specific in the CUP of what we have to be able to meet, and we're okay with that. Would you consider zoning at C2, let us do the CUP, We know that if there's a problem, we get it revoked. We're okay with that because we want the safety for everyone as well. But then at least we do have the option. We can switch over and we can do, you know, a little boutique or a little cafe or something like that. And it's not going to be, you know, all of a sudden your business is shut down and it's going to be this big process going through city council and stuff to be able to get another project going. You know, I want to make sure that we're in this. We want to retire here. We want this to be our business forever. We want to make sure that we're able to answer any questions that are on this property. And we're willing to do that. We're willing to change if we need to. I have talked to the owner of that east piece. I cannot buy it yet until we get going. So if we did the conditional use and only had the third east entrance for now, and then it came available and I could buy that, and then we could discuss putting in a possible right in, right out from Telegraph. Would that be something that would be a possibility?
This is Councilman City. For me, yes.
For me, Councilman Ivy, yes.
So sorry, there was like 6 ifs and 2 thens. That would be a definite no. I mean, there's just no way you would. If this and then if this and then if this and then possibly then this.
No, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm saying the CUP is very in depth, where we have to do the CUP, and anyone that comes in after us has to do the CUP. So we have to be in line with the city on it. So there aren't any ifs, ands, and buts about it. We have to do that, or we are not able to do our business, and we understand that. But we also have, I always look way down the line and make sure that we're able to do things. And they weren't ifs, ands, and buts. They're just, as we progress, what are we going to do? Let's think ahead of time. And so, you know, if we had to shut down the drive-through portion, that's what we would do. You know, if we had to do a little floral or a boutique, that's what we would have to do. And we understand that. So I'm just asking if, you know, can we do like Domino's, get it zoned C2 so that it's an easier process. If anything ever did come up with the CUP and they shut us down, we could quickly change, you know, put out more tables, whatever it is that we needed to do, and shut that drive-through down, but still be, all right, now we're on the move. We can go. You know, it's not going to financially cripple us in the process, just waiting for each of the meetings to try to redo. Does that make any more sense?
They're all thinking. Mrs. Wood.
I was just thinking of one of the biggest stacking problems in southern Utah is right there at exit 10. Not that helps this situation, just a comment.
We need 2 in our city.
Mayor, do you know if there has been any public comment along the way on this? Or I think we had the public hearing last meeting, but I don't remember anything that came forward.
Council,
It
you
was
had,
all
you had the
positive.
owner. You had the owner that owned the piece of the with the star on it. He was
Right.
the only
Mr.
one.
Brooksby was the only one.
And he said he's in favor of it. So, and that was
Okay.
all.
I couldn't remember what the public comment was.
Yep, and that was it.
I have had a couple of residents around there ask about that, and they were positive about it. They thought it'd be nice to have something there. So
I suggest all the thinking and the discussion is a positive thing. You know, no one wants to be too quick to jump on it one way or the other.
Right.
But
So, I mean, Drew and Mike, you've got a lot of road improvements in there, very colorfully drawn ones. So I guess I'm wondering, is this for this one business? How much money and improvements do we have to put into that corner in order to make that work that way? I'm guessing those are not improvements you're intending to make without that.
Probably down the road, we're probably going to have to look at improvements, widening those intersections, widening the roads out. But for this development here, I mean, those are all improvements that they'll have to put in as part of the development of the property that we're requesting.
Drew, I don't want to get, go ahead, Councilman.
I was just going to say, Mayor, I'm ready for a motion to try to move this along if you're.
Can I ask one question first, Councilman?
Absolutely.
Drew, can you explain the difference in uses between a C1 and a C2 zoning?
That question's been asked so many times, and it's, you know, years ago I came to the conclusion there's not that much difference.
That's, as I'm reading, I actually read it, I've highlighted this, and I'm really just, other than a liquor store and storage units and maybe motor vehicle camper trailer sales by a conditional use permit, once again, those are just a few of the things I see you can do in a C2 that you can't do in a C1. Would the applicant be amiable to a C1 zoning, which allows them to do the type of business that they propose?
So could you tell me, do you have something in front of you that you can tell me what businesses could go in under the C1?
Well, I kind of read them. It's all retail. Restaurants are allowed in a C1.
Okay. And like a little boutique or a floral or a little retail shop, any of those things are okay. Or an administrative building, are those all okay under a C1?
Yeah, because C1 allows for this. And tell me again, here's the line that fits in the C1. I think it'll still be happy for you, Teresa. It says retail sale and or rental of goods, merchandise, and equipment conducted wholly within an enclosed building. Now the C2 allows for outdoor, you know, sales as well. But I look at that as like a nursery or a lumber yard. You know, a small lumber yard would go in that C2 because it's outdoor. You know, the wood is outside. I'm not going to look at your patio. No, hold on. I'm not going to look at your patio saying that's outdoor sales. That's not, that wouldn't fall there. So you're fine within the C1.
Okay, but okay, so say if we had to, if they shut down the CUP and we couldn't do the drink shop and we wanted to do a razor, you know, a side-by-side sales or something like that, you couldn't do that because you can't have it outside, right?
You not in a C2, but you could again come and ask for a zone change to a C2, right? But C1 meets the needs for the intended use right now. And
it's just a small property, so if we had to put a big building, we wouldn't have parking, you know. And so I want to make sure all of our bases are covered.
Right. From the way I read the ordinance, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong, is that like a razor sells or camper sells or auto sells, something like that would require C2 plus a conditional use permit for that use. But that wouldn't prohibit you from coming back through the process. So what I'm saying is C1, while more restrictive, still gives you the ability to pursue what you're looking at now.
The only thing I didn't like about this C1 is that it all has to be interior. That just scares me. I want to make sure that we're safe, and I want to know that we're, you know, I don't know.
But I'm more concerned, Teresa, if I may, if you know, I'm going to jump to your example because you asked the question, and then all of a sudden my comfort level goes down. When you state you wanted to do maybe recreational vehicle sales, so I'm looking at trailers attached to vehicles coming out on that short. Now I have more of a problem. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
I do, and that was, I guess that was just a bad example. I was trying to do something that's all interior.
Yeah.
Mayor, if your approval, I'll make a motion.
I approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-13, a request from multiple family residential R3 to service commercial C1 located on the northeast corner of 300 East and Telegraph. The applicants are Brandon and Teresa Wood.
Councilman, just to see one would be community commercial, and I'll second.
Okay,
By way of discussion, wow. Yeah. So at this point, we don't really know where the entrance will be. But basically on your road designs, the only thing you would allow was something basically up in the top right corner, top left corner.
That's basically the only thing that Public Works is going to allow.
So your issues are anybody slowing down at that corner, you've basically got how many car lengths would there? 1, 2, 3, 4 car lengths before you're backing up into the intersection.
depends on the size, but probably average, yeah.
And everybody coming out of there would have to turn right and go up into that residential neighborhood to make a U-turn or go through the residential neighborhood to get out.
And that will be all day.
Yeah, including when schools are evacuating
I would
children.
definitely say a condition of no U-turns on 300.
You
Then
wouldn't
that's
be able
cost,
to, that would
that's cost onto our city staff. Now we're going to have to post it as no U-turns and median it up. It just adds more.
Yeah, I don't know that you could put a conditional use permit on the occupant of this in order to control traffic.
No,
up
I'm
the
just
road from
saying
where
that.
they're at.
Yeah, good point. But okay, we'll let the traffic study come back. I'm not trying to sway you at all. I'm just thinking it through, and then you're doing the same.
I think the dang thing is cute as a button.
I'm not trying to influence you at all. Okay?
You should. Somebody should.
Mr. Shaw, could I ask just one more question? Maybe this has been addressed, but that stacking room on 300 East to make a right turn in, would that even meet our access management standards?
It would not. That's why we're saying we could probably do just almost a single car pull out to get off of the road while they're coming in. And that's also why we were requiring a minimum of 20 cars stacking on their property. Looking at the other developments and talking with the other cities that have similar projects, that's what they're saying that they wish they would have required was 20 cars stacking on the property itself. And then just one other quick thing, no matter what comes to this site, as far as traffic and public works, that's probably going to be the only access we would ever approve of on this parcel.
So fill that in for me a little bit. What do you mean by that, Mike?
It really won't matter what use comes in here. That's what we're going to require for their.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Unless the other property
to the east
was
yeah. Maybe there,
which may or may not help.
Yeah, we might have the distance there, but we definitely want to try to get in a turn lane, a right-hand turn lane in there to get them off of the travel lanes.
And this is general planned historic commercial, Drew?
Yeah, but since
Not
that
sure what
never
that means
took off,
exactly.
that never took off, we basically just left it as a kind of a community commercial general plan designation in essence.
I still like it. So the right turn lane, the one length of right car turn lane, would that be built on the occupant's property? Or is that in the city? Is there a city right of way there? It would have to be on that into that lot, right?
Probably be a little of both, Councilman.
Interesting. And you're thinking the only thing you could get would be one car length of a turn in. Is that right, Mike?
What was that?
So you're thinking you would only be able to get one car length of a turn in.
Initially, that's initially what we've talked about. Like I say, until this comes in for the CUP, we really haven't dove into it real heavily.
But you couldn't find two car lengths in there.
Possibly.
Okay.
It won't meet our access management, but we kind of have to bend because it makes it safer than it would be without.
Even, maybe. Okay, do have a motion and a second. I'll make it a roll call vote. Start with Councilman Bundy.
Sorry. Councilman Bundy, nay.
Coates, nay.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, nay.
Staley, aye.
That is denied 3-2.
No, the motion just failed.
Just the motion.
Motion failed, yeah.
The
Motion
failed.
Sir, yes. Could you zone it to C1 and let us sell it? I understand if you don't want us there, but can we just get it zoned? That property can be C1.
Hard to deny a conforming zone request, regardless of what we think the future use would be. I mean,
Now, this is just about zoning tonight.
No, I agree with you, but my opinion is it should be PD commercial.
And I wouldn't actually argue with that. I mean,
that's why I denied it, was based on that, and it's all based on traffic. If it's a drink shop, if it's whatever, I'm concerned about the traffic, and it's not being. I want insight on the overview of what's going on there to make sure and to work with our public works staff. That's where I'm landing.
I see you, Councilman Buddy, nodding. Are you kind of of the opinion with PD? I can support that. I personally, I think the CUP is a little bit better just because of the ability to revoke the permit, but I'm not against the PUD. So I guess the question now is the applicant amenable to a planned unit development that where you would come in, Teresa, and bring in your site plan and bring in a lot of the things up front and work with the council on the design
and staff. I would expect staff to go through it before we get it and get their input, because they're the professionals on how it looks, and then have us take their opinion and work on it. And that's how I feel. But and as far as the teeth, I understand we have teeth with the conditional use, but I look at it as that's great. It's conditional use, but the biggest concern I have is then we have to go down that road to enforce it. And I think no matter what, you're going to have an issue there. So let's get it right on the site and not have the issue. But that's my opinion.
And Mrs. Wood, in the end, you could end up with the same project that you want. This just gives the staff and the council
just a
more
different
oversight.
vehicle. We've been discussing two vehicles, and
this is a Ford, the other's a Chevy. You're going to get to where you're going
Possibly.
the same way, possibly, but
Before we leave that topic, I think we need at least one more metaphor. Just kidding. No one's going to go for another metaphor.
so Mrs. Wood, going back through the process for a PUD, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, would likely be 3 weeks.
We could,
or can we approve that tonight, Drew?
Oh, no, you can't, because the PUD is all about the design on that. So it is different. They have to, I mean, the exhibits are pretty much the same thing as it would be in a conditional use permit. In fact, it'd almost be identical as what I'd be expecting. Exhibits for a CUP or exhibits for your PUD detail, project detail. The difference is going to the planning commission and then you folks, and then you need to decide. I think I'm asking you if you could not hold a 2-week holdover if you're going to make them go through that again for that commercial part of it, because it's just, again, the design on it, and don't sit on it for 2 weeks. But that would be the extra. You're going to add a month through the process by going PUD-C.
Do we
without the
get any
2-week
more?
holdover.
Do we get any more answers about traffic?
No, we're going to make them go through it anyway. Staff is. Mike's going to make them, he's going to run them through the ringer with their engineer and our engineer. That seems to be the big hangup. It's going to be rung through them, whether it's a CUP or the zoning of PUD. The engineers are going to have to hold tight on that. And that's going to be the biggest thing. Mike's going to hold tight on that traffic.
So can it be zoned C1 and we can move ahead with the CUP?
Well, they just denied that motion, Teresa, so.
Can I ask?
Even if I don't do the drink shop?
Can I ask a question to the council members down there? Can you explain maybe a little better? Both of your land use professionals, can you explain kind of what you think you might get with a PUD that you don't get with a conditional use permit? I'm just trying to understand why that makes sense, why you're thinking that is a better vehicle than the conditions with the conditional use permit.
Because I think we're going to see it, and they're going to come in with a plan. They're going to have address traffic, the whole deal as that comes in. Otherwise, as has been talked about, it's going to be simply a conditional use. We don't see it. It's problematic. A business starts and it's tough to revoke a license, or a CUP, their permit. It's tough to revoke that. Not that it would have to be necessarily, but.
And that happens with the next occupant. So if this changes hands, or even in the midstream, they decide to change this, it's locked in. You have a council that gets to take a look at it and fit and fill and design.
And in fairness, not really trying to go tit for tat, but if the applicant decides to go PUD route and this council approves it, and there happens to be stacking issues, how do we address that at that point?
You still have a police force.
That would
you could literally just give them tickets.
And
their business wouldn't, well, you'd either give the people giving tickets there on the road, or I don't know, you could have, we kind of discussed that a little bit previously, but we might have to explore that.
I don't know. I didn't mean to speak for Councilman Coates about that question. So I don't know.
I agree with you on that. I really like adding the right turn lane, even if we can get a car. I mean, I wish we had more. It's such a small site, just to get so you have a place for people to pull through. Because if we have 20 plus stacking distance on the site, and then you can have a way to turn off and people can get by you and not have to stop, that is huge to me, just to have a place. It's not ideal how short it is, but whatever we can get. And I want to make sure that that gets done as part of our process and reviewing it and seeing. That's how I look at it.
With the council's eyes, in addition to staff size,
Yes.
that's what you're saying.
Yes.
You say we trust staff, we believe they know how to do this, but
I trust the planning commission, but they're not all here listening to our conversation currently that we're having. And that's my concern, is that maybe it might not get relayed 100%.
I hear that.
Back to all them of all our concerns. And with us being the elected body, I feel like
I hear you. I
due diligence
have
on
that concern
this,
as well.
And this intersection is really, it's already too tight. Like, it's a tight intersection. We already have, I mean, we need a right turn on 300 off Washington Fields. So, I mean, we might not have near as much traffic heading north, but there's still plenty of traffic. I've been in lots of traffic right there. And if we have to stop for a drink shop and we got all those people trying to get to our community center and it's stacked up on a busy Saturday, I'm just super concerned of not doing it right.
No, I hear you.
And I've talked to other councils about the drink shops in their areas too. And they've told me, hey, we've screwed up on some. Some we haven't, some we have. But I just don't want to err wrong on this. Even if it's not a drink shop, a commercial piece here as well, I would like to see, just because of the intersection.
And my initial inclination was PUD. It's just really for me the ability to try to force any stacking issues, because I share those issues. And I just felt like that was but it's almost like you maybe having a little more ability to enforce off-site stacking, right? You give up some of the initial council, staff would review both, but council being able to review site plan and things like that. So to me, if the rest of the council isn't hung up on that, I don't have to be hung up on that.
And I appreciate that. I also look at as a conditional use. They're still permitted to do it no matter what once you have straight zoning. You can do whatever you want on this site as long as it meets in it. There might be conditions, but you can do what's already your zone C2. You can put any C2 on that property.
Well, on Telegraph, anything would need a conditional use permit.
Well, I understand. Doesn't matter where it's at with conditional use. If it's zoned for storage units, you can put storage units.
Yeah, that's why I was like in C1, right?
Yeah, but I'm just the experience I had on planning commission is you add all these conditions, but no matter what, it's still approved. It's not like you can deny them, but you can put conditions on them, but you can't deny them. They can still put it there as long as they can meet the conditions. So we're not, it's more insight on the actual, what's happening on the whole thing.
And that's again, exactly why I like the conditional use permit, is because the condition is no offsite stacking. And we threatened to revoke. How enforceable that is, I don't know, but I like that option. So that's what swayed me the other way. But I guess at this point, it's really in the council and this other, I don't need to be a mediator. It's the council giving direction to staff. So I'll let maybe the three other council members talk to the applicant about.
Well, I think we have. I mean, I guess I would ask, are you open to the PD commercial? And the initial thought is that you weren't. I'm just wondering if there's been any change or if.
Hey, this is Reed. I've been listening for over an hour. I've been kept quiet because Teresa's been taking the front, but I've been listening to go from both sides. What I can't figure out, and I hope somebody can explain it to me, is we have to do a traffic study by a licensed traffic engineer, which we've started, and they're going to come back with the recommendations according to traffic counts. And we've actually selected the traffic study person that has done these before, so he knows exactly what he's looking for, and he's going to make a recommendation. And that's what I can't figure out. The conditional use permit, if we have to meet as part of the condition a traffic study, and the traffic study has to come back as positive, that we need X amount of stacking. If we can't meet it, then the conditional use permit can't be granted. I just don't see where you're losing all of your, I get that you want to look at it, and I think that's great. We have no problems. I mean, releasing it, you can have it for a couple of weeks. We don't really care. Then you can make recommendations to planning and zoning about how you feel about it. I just don't see where you're losing the ability to review this document, review this. And then even if, like Drew was saying, if you don't like what happened to planning and zoning, you can come back in and deny it later. You can pose it.
Well, so
I just
can I get staff to just help us with the process here as far as, so we have a motion that was posed and then denied. The council is basically recommending to the applicant to review this and to bring it back as a CUP PUD commercial. What's the process that we need to kind of adhere to at this point?
Well, the process would be they would apply for, in essence, a zoning for the detailed approval, the PUD plan approval, the design. So they would come back, run it just like they did. They would run it back like they did with this zone change. It would go to the planning commission. They'd hold their public hearing on it. They'd make their recommendation to you. 3 weeks after that, you would get it.
So even in the meeting here, do I need to make a motion to deny this so they actually clear it off the agenda at this point?
No. That they'd have to start from scratch to go all the way back to the beginning.
But I'm talking about today's motion, because at this point all we have was a proposed motion that failed. Do we need to have a motion to deny this on the record? Yeah, you're saying yes.
Who is?
I've got Denise here in the room nodding her head.
No, I mean, that's if you don't want to, if they don't want to accept the PUDC and you don't want, then yes, that's what you would do. But no, if they'll accept a PUDC, then you could motion to do that. And they have the zoning. They have PUD commercial within beyond that parcel. Now, they would have to come back before they
Come
get a building
forward and
permit.
help us with this.
Pardon?
Well, sorry, Drew. I know it's hard for us because we're in two rooms, but Denise is saying something. I just want to be clear.
Drew? On your
Yes.
PUDs, don't you have to submit the plans to the council when they make their motion?
Well, now here's what I'm trying to explain, okay? Everybody listen. You've done this before. You can give the zoning of PUDC. They have to get an approved plan and they come back with that and they run it through the same process. But you could give them the zoning of it. You just have not approved their plan to
So it's
build.
like your residential then.
No, not the residential plan, just the plan on the project.
But I
That's
mean,
what-
that's how you're handling it is the same as if it was residential.
Yeah, it's the same approval process.
Yeah.
If they don't have the plan up front, you can give them the zoning and they bring the plan back for your approval, the specific plan for the property.
Today, without it going through the planning commission, without it
No.
doing anything else.
It would have to go through both of you guys again.
Well,
The plan.
but the plan would, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm going to just pose this to the applicant. I'm not going to go through this process if you're not willing to do the PUD commercial. But if you are, I'll make a motion to start that process.
I would like to start the process. So then it would be zone commercial, but anything that comes in there would be subjected to the PUD, right?
Yes, and staff can help you and guide you through that. They're very good.
Perfect.
So
Okay, thank you.
make a motion that we modify the zoning on Z-20-13 from the current multifamily residential to a PUD commercial for the site located at the northeast corner of 300 East and Telegraph. Do I need to add anything else in there? That sounded right.
Sound right?
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion.
I would say at the northeast corner of 300 East and Telegraph.
That's
Is that what you said? Yeah. Sorry, I missed that.
I'll second the motion, Councilman Staley.
I do have a motion and a second. Again, we'll go with a roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Goat's eye.
Bundy, aye.
All right. We'll move forward on that. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the discussion. Teresa, thank you. Reed, all you and staff. Okay, we'll
Thank
move
you,
on.
guys. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 8, report of officers from assigned committee.
Mayor, if I may start, the Solid Waste District yesterday appointed Ben Billingsley to the district manager position for the Solid Waste Board, or for the landfill out there. He was a great applicant, super impressed by him. He also was an applicant for our city manager. but
Probably why he pulled his
That's why he
application.
pulled his application. I was kind of disappointed. Everyone was like, sorry, but we took him. And I'm like, man, that's too bad. He was a good applicant, and I think he's going to do a really good job out there. It definitely will be exciting to see what happens out there and keep things running smoothly as they move forward.
Is he local?
He's a Washington City resident, which
Lives in
is
the
great.
fields.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that. He lives in
that's
Washington
great.
City, and I think that's good to have someone that lives in our city that's running the landfill, since it's right next door.
No, that's awesome.
Can you give me the name again?
Benjamin Billings.
Billingsley, isn't it? So you can,
Okay. I meant to tell her not
One
to
less
take
in your
those.
staff.
You just need to scratch it off. Huh? I don't think they provided us with his. but
no, they didn't.
I haven't,
He pulled,
I haven't
he
got
pulled
through
his
that,
application.
that stack, but that's what I have from my assigned committees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the only thing I'd mention is the league's annual convention is September 21st to the 25th. It's virtual. And they're having some on-site tours and different things. If you get on the league website, you can look at it and see if you're interested.
Yeah, I believe I would ask you to, if you're interested, to get with Denise and let her register you for that. Thank you. Anything else?
Oh, thank you.
How about this side of the fence? Nothing. I forgot to read this, and I would like to read it if I may. It's a proclamation from Washington City. This is Constitution Week, so we did have a declaration. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17, 2019 marks the 233rd anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebration which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designated September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth F. Nielsen, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Washington City, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th to the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberty. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of Washington City, Utah, to be affixed this 9th day of September of the year of our Lord 2020. I thought that would be appropriate for our public to hear. So if not, after this, we'll adjourn. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Councilman Mundy.
Second, Councilman Ward.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you tomorrow night.
Turn it back on.
Yeah, it's over now. Well, he says there's the interim city manager. I should give him that. What I would have said was free for all y'all. Your plan now.